Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Southampton Town Board on this 25th day of August, 2020. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And let's remain standing while we join together in a brief moment of silence. As has been our tradition, we keep in our thoughts and prayers all the men and women of our armed services who bravely defend our freedoms at home and abroad each day. And also let's pause in remembrance of all the lives lost to the COVID-19 pandemic in the United States and really all around the world. Just the toll, the human toll has been so significant. So it's a massive tragedy, and let's all pause in memory of all the individuals who lost their lives. Okay, please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you kindly call the roll?
Certainly. Supervisor Schneiderman.
Present.
Councilman Lofstad.
Here.
Councilman Martell.
Present.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Schiavone.
Present.
All right, let me start by making a motion to approve the minutes of our regular town board meeting of August 11th, 2020.
Second.
Second by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
I approve. All right, moving on to communications. Sunday, would you please read the communications we've received?
Certainly. The following communications have been received in the office of the town clerk. We have received from the Department of the Army, letter of coordination regarding Griffin Avenue, Village of West Hampton Beach, Town of Riverhead public hearing notices, Village of Sag Harbor emergency order filing and public hearing notices. The Village of West Hampton Beach, their emergency order filed, and a zoning board of appeals application for Main Street in the Village. Financial disclosure statements have been filed by listed individuals and town fire districts. From the Hampton Bays Fire District, a declaration of emergency extension on August 5th, 2020. Letters, emails, and land use applications have been received regarding the following: the Star Aquatic Facility, tree removal at 86 Chester Street, Bridgehampton, zoning board matter of 2331 Montauk LLC, Bridgehampton, zoning board of appeals application for Bayview Drive East in Noyak. The following bid openings took place: the North Sea Beach Colony Beach Erosion Control District Nourishment on August 19th, 2020, and plumbing supplies on the same day. And that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Sunday. Question for Jim. We're going to go to public hearings in a moment, and I'd like to see if we can call the first three together. If not, at least the second two together, both on the moratoriums. But rather than make people speak twice, I'd rather people be able to speak. We have a number of speakers on any of the three at one time. Is that okay?
Yes, I think that they're very, very related in subject matter and topics. So, yes.
So, and just to refresh everybody's memory, the first hearing has to do with the set of steps that you must follow if you encounter likely human remains. The second and third are two different variations of a moratorium on the Sugarloaf and Fort Hill area in Shinnecock Hills. The second one, which is public hearing number 3, is a more expansive and covers the area of Hawthorne, where a Native American grave was fairly recently unearthed. So, Madam Clerk, I'd like you to read the first, second, and third public hearing notice.
Certainly, and I will let you know that the streaming live is operating
Okay, very
on the portal. Public hearing number 1, to consider amending Town Code Chapter 330 zoning to add Section 330-333 entitled Protection of Unmarked Graves. Public hearing number 2, to consider enacting Town Code, Chapter 323, imposing a moratorium on certain development actions within particular areas of the hamlet of Shinnecock Hills. Public hearing number 3, to consider enacting Town Code, Chapter 323, imposing a moratorium on certain development actions within particular areas of the hamlet of Shinnecock Hills.
All right, thank you, Sunday. So, and just real briefly, and I've explained this several times, we have been tabling this because we know a lot of people are interested in this, and we've been concerned during the pandemic about inviting a lot of people into one small space. I will be asking the board, though, to adjourn it to since we won't be able to hold a large arena-style public hearing, the best I think that we can do if we're going to enact this is a Zoom meeting that's well publicized. So I'd like to ask for a special meeting on September 15th at 7 p.m. So after those who wish to speak tonight have spoken, and at that point, probably we'll leave the record open for a few days, and then by the following week, it should be eligible for a vote. So that would be September 22nd. I'll make sure we have the enabling or adopting resolutions in our packet for that point, should the board wish to move forward. So again, the first one is really what you must do if you encounter what may be human remains. You obviously stop construction and you follow a very detailed sequence of steps, including possible referral for acquisition as one possibility, notification of stakeholder groups like the Shinnecock Nation, et cetera. Most states have something like this. New York is one of, I think, 4 states that do not. It became very apparent after human remains were encountered on Hawthorne Road in Shinnecock Hills, and we really had no mechanisms in place. I asked the building inspector to issue a stop work order. The building inspector at the time said, I have no basis to do that. I was able to reach an agreement with the property owner to stop all construction, and we did, in that case, acquire the land. We worked in good faith to make that happen, but it made it really clear that there really were no tools in place, something that the Shinnecock people have been saying for a long time, that we need a law like this on the books. I worked hard with Jim and with members of the Shinnecock Nation and others in the law department to craft this. This law, I think, is even stronger what's being proposed at the state level. There is still a law that's pending at the state level. But I think that this is a really important series of steps. The second one is a moratorium.
Supervisor, if I could, I just want to interject here. I looked up the law that was proposed into the Assembly, and it's currently in the Committee for Corporations, Authorities, and Commissions. It was referred to the same committee in 2019 and 2020, and that is where it currently is. It has not been passed.
It has not, yeah.
So they're going to have more sessions this year, but it
Okay.
still hasn't gotten out of its first committee.
Thank
so.
you, Councilman. All right, so the second public hearing is on a building moratorium in the Sugarloaf and the Fort Hill areas of Shinnecock Hills. There is a map that the state recognizes. Fort Hill is a really important settlement area. It's the main settlement area ancestrally for the Shinnecock, and then the Sugarloaf area ancestrally was the main burial ground. That is not to say that there weren't settlements elsewhere and burials elsewhere, but this is a state-recognized map, and this says for a period of 6 months, in the burial area, the Sugarloaf area, there'd be no excavation, no building permits that required excavation would be issued unless stage 1A and B archaeology were first completed to try to make sure that there'd be no inadvertent desecration of graves or human remains or cultural resources. The second one, and then in the Fort Hill area, the settlement area, it pertains to new home construction. So in Sugarloaf, it's really any construction that involves excavation that requires a building permit. And in In Fort Hill, it's the new construction, a new dwelling. So, the third public hearing expands the sugar loaf restrictions. It runs to an area that runs along the water heading toward, is it Peconic Road?
Yes.
And it basically, it sort of mirrors the Fort Hill area on the map. All the area below it, as you head toward the water, would fall into this category. So that additional land would follow the same protocols, same requirements as the Sugarloaf area. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, we've worked very hard in trying to craft these pieces of legislation with members of the Shinnecock Nation. So let's go to our list, and I'd like to first recognize Chairman Brian Polite, Chairman of the Tribal Council of the Shinnecock Nation, who'd like to speak on behalf of the nation regarding these legislative issues.
Good evening. I apologize. I'm going to keep the mask on because I don't want to get my saliva all over this. So.
Thank you, Brian.
I come here tonight to speak in support of the Graves Protection Act and to also give clarity to what many might perceive as not being patient or not waiting or anything of that nature. One of the things that people need to understand about this particular legislation is it's not just this board. So when there's anger of slow movement or stuff not getting done, it's not directed at any one board. It's at the system of itself that would allow for this kind of injustice to continue to happen decade after decade after decade after decade after decade. So I just wanted to say that first to let you guys know that although we appreciate the fact that legislation was crafted, careful legislation, I honestly believe that this is a very good piece of legislation and has teeth, and I do appreciate this board taking the time. With that being said, while we wait for this law to be enacted, while we wait for a moratorium, construction continues, desecration continues. I've had multiple conversations with the supervisor and with other town board members. We've had meetings, and it feels like every time we get to a point where we're about to get something done and get the construction to stop, it gets pushed back. And then more construction happens, which is kind of like ripping a scab off of a wound, a constant scab. And the reason why the Shinnecock Nation, in particular the Graves Protection Warrior Society, and people feel so strongly about it, because it keeps happening. And it just feels like, even though there's legislation in the works right now, that we're being ignored. So I do want to give clarity to that and to describe how that must feel. You must know how that must feel to the Shinnecock people when we do go through these meetings with the town supervisor and the board, and we do have legislation, again, that I think is landmark legislation. But then it doesn't go anywhere because of COVID or delays. But, there's a saying by Martin Luther King Jr., the fierce urgency of now. And I implore this board to understand that we need the fierce urgency of now. We do have that hearing coming up in September. I implore this board to take this up and to pass it. Because every time another construction happens out there, it's just a wound. It's another wound. And we've been listening to board after board after board after board saying something was going to be done, and we're still here, and there's still construction going on. So I do want to acknowledge and thank this board for your diligence and your work with this legislation, but I would implore you again to have the fierce urgency of now and pass this legislation immediately. Thank you.
Brian, before you sit down, though, I just want to go on the record here, because this has been adjourned a number of times because of COVID. And,
Correct.
with each of those adjournments, I reached out to you and
did.
said, Brian, what?
And I relayed that to the Graves Protection Warrior Society. But again, as I said, delays, COVID has affected everything.
But I just want to just try to acknowledge that because I didn't want this delayed.
Correct. No, you have definitely reached out to go on record.
The delays
Yeah.
were in the interest of public health, and they were with mutual agreement between the leader of Southampton town government and the leader.
It was an
of
acknowledgement, correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Of
But
the
I don't,
Shinnecock
again,
Tribal
it's not about the delays with the COVID. It's more about the construction that goes on during the delays, and that becomes the problem. I completely understand, the nation completely
agree.
understands delays. COVID has delayed everything. What we don't understand is how construction continues to happen while this is being delayed. So while this is being delayed, unfortunately, because of COVID, which is a reasonable, absolutely public safety, this room is very small. I would feel very uncomfortable with my tribal elders coming in here for a meeting.
Exactly.
We don't even have large meetings and gatherings ourselves, so we understand that. What we don't understand, and where the frustration and the anger is coming from, is the fact that while we wait, desecration continues to happen.
Understand, I don't want the delay either. I just want to,
Correct.
I just want you to
Yeah.
understand that too. And I even said with the moratorium, if you're going to propose a moratorium, it's better you enact it as quick as possible.
Correct.
Because then people rush in to try.
And that was the point of the moratorium
Right, exactly.
months ago before COVID happened, so that it gave us
we didn't-
time to get the legislation where it needed to be.
We didn't create this pandemic. It's just the timing has been,
Correct.
In terms of this
yeah.
legislation. But there's nothing I would have wanted more than
Yeah.
this to move
Yeah.
very quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the legislation, again, you guys took the time out. I think it's a great piece of legislation. I'm just, we're hoping, and we're at this point pretty much imploring you guys to not delay it anymore.
No, I
We
appreciate
got the
that.
Zoom meetings, and I appreciate that. We will have our people and all our supporters, and I hope even the detractors, because having a healthy debate about this is important to get out what is actually going on. A lot of people don't understand the nuance of what's going on exactly. So we just hope that there's no more delays after September, that we get this law passed. I'm asking every board member to please support this bill.
Thank you. And again, I was looking forward to a day where the Shinnecock Nation members could come and really passionately speak on behalf of this, to be able to come and share their stories and their frustration and, why this was important to them, that the town finally takes this step. And, no effort to delay that. But I knew that was important, that people felt that this was, their moment, and that they were a part of it, and it didn't happen behind closed doors in some inaccessible meeting.
Correct.
So, apologies for that, but if you are comfortable with doing it via Zoom, the governor is allowing Zoom meetings, at least at the moment.
Yeah.
At least at the moment. That is one potential problem, is that executive order expires in early September, and we expect the governor to extend it. If he doesn't, we're going to have to go back to an in-person meeting. But I just give you my word that I will do this as expeditiously as possible now.
Yes, thank
So
you.
even if we have to do an in-person meeting, we'll just do
Yeah.
it, and people can wait outside until it's their turn to speak. or
Yeah, because at
whatever.
this point, I mean, people are still going forward with construction, so every delay now is, a potential desecration. So, again, I thank you guys, and I hope that we can get this passed, as the supervisor said, as expeditiously as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight, Brian. Okay, Hope, Sandra?
Yeah, I'll just ask,
Would you,
I'll just ask you, would you like to hear from Kelly next instead of me?
I have you next on
I
the
know I'm
list.
not, oh, okay. Where's this offering?
Kelly Dennis is on the list.
Yeah, but she's a Shinnecock Nation member, and I thought maybe you'd want
Uh,
to
you
hear
know,
from her first before me.
If you want to defer to Kelly to speak before you, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Okay.
She's terrific, and our young generation of Shinnecock Nation members, as is Brian.
I try to do it in the order they're received.
Yeah.
But I
No,
would
I
allow
know.
you to defer if you wish.
It brings tears to my eyes, I'm sorry, to be here again. Because Jay, as you know, this has been before us for as long as I've known you, 11 years when we saved the 10 acres. And it's very disturbing to live in a neighborhood like my husband and I do, which is the Fort Hill area, and see land area after land area developed, knowing that in those lands are artifacts and the culture that's been buried, both literally and metaphorically. Metaphorically because of how the nation members have been treated, and literally because the grasses have been growing over these lands the last 150 years since the town took the land in 1858. So what I'm wearing today is a wampum necklace made by Harry Wallace, and many Shinnecock Nation members are employed by him. And I have two, and I prize them. But I wore this one today because Harry Wallace, who's the chief, explained to me that it's the necklace that brings people together. And that's what I want to do here. We need to bring everyone together in the town to support our First Peoples, because that will bring peace to everybody. So one bear claw represents the north, one the south, one the east, and one the west. And the larger one in the center connotates everyone coming together. Brian is very right that ever since this moratorium was discussed, every time I come out my driveway, there's a new for sale sign. And almost like overnight is a whole new house going up. And we don't even have time to text each other, like the people I know at the Nation, hey, you need to check this out. So there can't be any more delays, please. And I did attend at Kelly's invitation of the Warriors meeting in a room. We wore a mask a couple weeks ago, and the pain and anguish is palpable. It haunted me for days afterwards to hear how ignored they feel, how they just feel disposable because their needs have not been recognized. And my husband and I are in total support of the moratoriums. We own land there, and we're also in total support of the grave protection. We're landowners. We've been there since 1976. We recently acquired another property that we don't plan to desecrate. And I've written you a very detailed history last month of the Spellman property that I really truly hope that you acquire for the CPF fund, because it's 4.2 acres, most of it never dug on. It's a unique opportunity in our area to buy land that's never been touched. I beg you, and they're willing sellers, so
Okay.
yeah, the Spellmans. So please, no delays, please.
Yes, thank you, Hope. And yeah, and we have prioritized the Shinnecock Hills area for preservation, so we have quite a number of negotiations, conversations regarding acquisitions in that area.
Buy everything. There's not much to buy that's left. But Jay, I want to thank you because when we first met, we saved the property. We worked with to help support the Shinnecock's acquisition of the 10 acres. And every day I drive by there, I feel pride in my heart of how everyone came together to preserve that. Please, let's do it throughout the hills.
Thank you.
Thank you. Someone left their pen.
All right, so next on my list is Heidi. I don't have a last name. Is there a Heidi here?
Yep. It's in the back.
Oh, hi Heidi, come on forward.
I'm on the first and the second. This is just the first.
You can speak on all three right now.
Okay, because I have a letter that I've written, and I also have two other letters that people have asked me to read who couldn't be here. My letter, I'll read my letter first, which is on graves protection legislation and respect for the Shinnecock. Dear members of the board, in light of the recent issue of no purchase by the CPF and no moratorium on a property that never had a proper archaeological review, I think it's important to realize the different places you and the town board and the Shinnecock tribe members are coming from. After years of being defeated at every turn in the efforts on the part of the Shinnecock people to garner the respect and protection of burial sites that are sacred to them, recent inaction, yet further delay on the passage of the graves protection legislation after 20 years of work on it, and no moratorium on the issuance of permits to build, feels like yet another betrayal of trust. After meetings during which there finally seemed to be an understanding of the importance of preserving these sacred sites, no Shinnecock tribal member was notified, let alone included in any kind of archaeological survey of the as yet undeveloped plots. Though there was a mention of a GPR, which was said could be used, it was revealed that no one had been trained to use it. These are lands which now, after being stolen from them, are either, quote, legally occupied, unquote, or for which permits were issued and then renewed, quote, appropriately and in full compliance with the town code, quote. Please take a minute and understand how this feels like underneath all the legalities, which seems to once again push aside Shinnecock concerns about preserving what little is left of their sacred land. We all need to focus on preserving these lands for the sake of all of our children's children, not just the developers who have money to make. Please, for the sake of the land and the relationships that must be founded on trust, let's try and stand by our commitments, even if moneyed interests out here are discomforted. It's time that we stand up and do right by our Indigenous neighbors, friends, and victims. Tabutne, thank you. Heidi, Shinnecock Ally.
Thank you, Heidi.
And then the other two letters I have are from other Shinnecock allies, one of whom is Catherine Shoka, and she's the founder of PEER. And she asked that I also hand this in to you.
Okay.
Rated Shinnecock Ancestral Burial Ground Grave Protection and Shinnecock Hills Moratorium. Dear Supervisor Schneiderman and Town Board members, honoring ancestral burial grounds is a sacred responsibility of all civilizations, and has been so for millennia. This moral duty must guide our actions and priorities as citizens and representatives of our community. The inconvenience of delayed building does not equate with the discovery and safe, respectable removal of ancestral remains. Let us endeavor to treat ancestral burial grounds with the dignity deserved. Keeping in mind our moral imperatives and our Shinnecock Nation neighbors' long-standing requests, PEER urges the town board to pass the legislation to protect the Shinnecock Nation's sacred burial grounds in the Shinnecock Hills tonight. The legislation has been drawn up and agreed to. It's time to stop the delays. Each groundbreaking in the hills is a heartbreak to the nation upon whose lands we live. It is time for the town to act by enacting the sensible legislation that for so long has languished in what appears to the nation and the public to be a fog of disinterest. Furthermore, PEER urges the town board to stop the delays and put in place a moratorium on building in sensitive areas in the Shinnecock Hills. If the board does not vote on the moratorium tonight, we urge you to require a proper archaeological survey on all properties in the hills before breaking ground, via executive order or whatever means are available. The time for action is now. PEER fully supports passing graves protection legislation and a moratorium today. Sincerely, Catherine Shoka, PEER co-chair. And the last one is to you, Jay, and it's a short one, from Tina Karan, who is she's a Qigong, a Tai Chi instructor out here. I'm sure you've met her. Hi, Jay Schneiderman. I was present at several town board meetings last year and spoke at one. I cannot come tonight because of isolation concerns. But I want you to know how important this issue is to the future of all of us in Southampton town, and how disappointed I am to see the board fail in its promise to follow through on protecting this sacred land from any and all development. I can't imagine why. Why, when everything was arranged, did nothing happen? How is this continuing? I know you've seen the film Conscience Point, and you must realize this is just a continuation of the same old thing. At a time when Democrats need a concerned citizenry to work together, this is a big divide, a wound which is in your power, if anyone's, to heal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Heidi.
And I can,
You want to give those to the clerk to us?
yes, please. Thank you.
All right, Tom? Thank you. I would have been, well, I would have been pretty close, I think, this time. Tom Oleschuk.
Okay. I'm pleased and dismayed at the same time. I'm very pleased at the product. I'm dismayed that we're here rather than over here. And what I would like to say is that it's all that we've heard so far this evening, I'm in agreement with. Very eloquently presented, particularly the feeling that these delays are allowing construction to go on. Now, I think part of your role as public officials is to maintain public trust. And I think part of the issue, has been not your being in touch with, with Chairman Polite or what have you, but a more general sense of people not knowing what's going to happen when, and at the same time, seeing what's happening out, in these construction sites. Now, I don't know if you have the authority to do an executive order, or if there's some other way to protect some of these places prior to the passage of these legislative pieces. What I do know is that when we rented on Brick Kiln, our landlord delayed putting in place some siding. Why? Well, he said, well, these inspectors, they can really do you in. And so he waited a couple of months, until basically the inspector, I think changed, there was a new inspector that came in, something like that. I'm sure that on a lot of these permits, strict letter of the law was not necessarily in place. And so I think as a token in the direction of this feeling of hurt and being abandoned, that maybe, Jay, you could have all of the permits reviewed, starting tomorrow, and go through each permit, line by line, and double check to make sure that everything is kosher. And let people know, because I think part of the problem has been, yeah, you've delayed, but again, people have seen the construction go on. Anyway, I'm very pleased with the content of the legislation. I think it's a remarkable step forward once it is passed. I'm strongly in support of being passed. And I'd like to just end by reading from a town sign in, actually this is one of a bunch that are around, but this is on Noyak Road and has the symbol on top. And it says, "Sacred and Historic, Town of Southampton, Noyak Edwards Burying Ground. Oldest burial, 1798. Kind of newbies. Okay. Please respect the monuments. No recreational use or unauthorized vehicles. No dogs permitted. Closed. Sunset to sunrise." And then at the bottom it has pursuant to Town Code 111-2A. That kind of stuff. Well, okay. The message here is quite clear. Okay. If you have a colonial site, you better not mess with it. And I think it's time that the town says, wait a minute, if it's an indigenous Shinnecock site, possibly, don't mess with it. Okay.
Tom,
Sure.
first of all, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
It's been lacking for a long time.
Yeah.
And we have to have that respect for the dignity of our indigenous peoples here. No question. Now, you said you're on Brick Kiln, right, in that area, Brick Kiln Road?
Yeah.
All right, so
I was, and then my wife and I moved around the corner. So.
okay, so one of the laws, definitely, it's throughout the entire town.
Yep.
If you encounter what might be human remains, might be, it might not be, you find a skull, it could be maybe an animal, it could be human.
Sure.
You stop, right,
Right.
until you figure it out. The other law, and this is really, you underscore it, I think, perfectly in your testimony, is that we don't really have a tool. If you're building a single-family home, there's no requirement in this area where the state already recognized, they've already said that this map is important. The Sugarloaf and Fort Hill, they've already said this is important. The state recognized you can build a house there tomorrow without having to do any archaeology. We need to put a law in the books to say, no, you can't. You can't.
Okay, but Jay,
Yeah.
that's not what I was saying.
Okay.
What I was saying was, permits are granted even though 100% of the law is not really fulfilled, all right? And that if you took, if you took a magnifying glass, you could stop some of the construction.
So I think we're talking about the same thing. And
No, I'm not talking
I'm not
about
sh-
whether whether there's anything underground, but hey, this construction site, has an excavation of 100 by 200 feet, and it's supposed to go down 20 feet. Well, the town code actually says it can only go down 18 feet, but it gets signs off on anyway. I mean, I think if you take a look at the provision, I just made that up. I've
never heard of that one, but.
But, it seems to me that if,
I understand the spirit of what you're trying to say.
yeah,
And
and that would at least, yes, you don't have this in place yet, but you can slow things down.
yeah, if there's a mechanism to get it in the moratorium in place and require that archaeology faster, I don't know, Jim, is there
Okay,
a way to
yeah,
do it
do
faster?
that, but before the moratorium is in place, okay, try to slow down the permit process. Try to review the existing permits, okay, so that you don't have grandmothers, in the Shinnecock Nation in tears or in anger, okay, because the construction still keeps going on, okay. Now,
I hear
this
what you're
is-
saying, I just don't know that there's a tool that I can, or the building department can say, you need to stop, because that language, Jim, are you aware, is there anything in the code that we could say,
I'm not aware of anything in the code right now. I did.
for a
discuss it little
subdivision,
earlier.
yes. Subdivision, yes, the planning board
Yes.
can require archaeology, but if you have a single and separate lot and you come in for a building permit, there's nothing there to stop it, and
In other words, you automatically grant a permit, no matter
There might be
what
other-
the details
What
are?
we need to do is
There might
to
be
treat
other
all
fa-
permits equally and with the same deference and due diligence, and we do. And we can't slow walk any one particular area. And one of the things that we really need to be mindful of when passing this legislation is to not have a lawsuit or something derail our efforts, and that's
All right,
that's
no,
very
I
important.
understand. But, you see, I'm just suggesting that,
Yes.
that if there was anything that could be done,
there might be
to
a
at
way
least
to.
slow it up until
Is there a way to do the
it's passed.
moratorium quicker than, could we, I don't have adopting resolution on tonight. We'd have to walk it on, but we'd have to have the resolution.
It's too-
I just don't know if that's possible. So 3 weeks from now, we could close the hearing on the moratorium, but
Still, yeah.
it's possible, and leave the other one open. We can close all three, and then at the next meeting, potentially adopt them. But-
I know I'm not supposed to say anything from here, but I'd say 6 signs went up this week on Montauk Highway, families,
Yeah, the best that would maybe, but that would then deny this Zoom meeting and all the people who want to speak on behalf, but, maybe Brian could speak to that. They'd probably rather it just get adopted than they get an opportunity to
At
speak.
this point, all of the talk, action is what the nation craves right now.
We haven't heard from everybody, and there might be some other people here who have different points of view. I know you can't, Charles can't hear.
I can't hear.
Okay, I'll make sure people speak into the microphone. Let's get through the public comments, stick around, I'll confer with the board a little bit. If there's a way, to do this quicker, maybe we'll be able to do it quicker.
Yeah, I think that would go a long way to sort of calming the waters.
Okay. I just want to make sure we have no legal problems, so that if we do pass it, somebody can't undo it
No,
and say, well, you did say publicly you'd have this other meeting, or whatever it is. All right, but we'll get there. Thank you, Tom. All right, Kelly Dennis.
Hello, my name is Kelly Dennis. I'm a Shinnecock tribe member and attorney, but I'm speaking before you as an individual. My concern that we've been hearing a lot is a reflection of how much we're all aware of the mass exodus from the city, people finding refuge out here on the beautiful eastern end of Long Island during the pandemic. If you look at some of the real estate charts, it just, goes up and then all the way up. People are really trying to find places out here. And I worry that that emboldens a lot of real estate brokers, construction companies, and others to find ways against what we're trying to do, which has been so important to the Shinnecock people and our neighbors and our supporters. And this delay is, giving them the opportunity to find ways of scrambling to get their projects done and also come up against the resolutions, either saying maybe there are legal problems or there's no basis. So with my time, I just want to go through some of the history to say how much of a basis there really is for this, and we hope that they can understand where we're coming from. And it even says in the town of Southampton records, there's a historian, James Truslow Adams. He recorded in 1918 that the Shinnecock, quote, had a large cemetery near their fort about halfway between Southampton Village and the Shinnecock Hills. And there was evidently considerable settlement about Canoe Place. That's where the canal is now. And so after that, in 1891, the Shinnecock Golf Club course developer Willie Dunn said several years into development, quote, the place was dotted with Indian burial mounds, and we left some of these intact as bunkers in front of the greens. We scraped out some of the mounds and made sand traps. One never knew when an explosion shot out a sand trap would bring out a couple of fire water flasks or perhaps a bone or two. And then in 1902, there was a recording that 16 Shinnecock graves were removed from where the Shinnecock Hills Golf Club sits now. So in recognizing all of this, very happy that the moratorium does expand past just the Sugarloaf kind of hill area. So yeah, there's been all kinds of private landowners and archaeological excavations that have unearthed several of our Shinnecock ancestral remains and funeraria objects in the Shinnecock Hills. And thankfully in 1990, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation recognized this and designated the Sugarloaf Indian burial site to be a critical environmental area. That happened again in 1990. Unfortunately, that Sugarloaf Hill archaeological site was destroyed in the 1980s. But the area was known to have a large burial pit in the center of the hill, as well as small burial pits scattered around the area. In addition to human remains, excavations of the area also produce a large number of associated burial items, such as pottery, fishing hoods, chipped stone, and other items. So given all this and much more evidence, and to learn that digging of the foundations for new buildings and home additions, including pools, that really can easily disturb the final resting place of Shinnecock ancestors and other unmarked graves. And, as we continue to ponder over these resolutions, people who may not always be supporters of the Shinnecock Nation, what we're trying to do, people who are emboldened by the political times that we're in to swing one side or the other for different reasons. I just hope that they can understand the history and all the recorded evidence that's out there to really understand that, you really could be coming across our ancestral remains as you continue to do this construction in the Shinnecock Hills area. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. All right, I have one other speaker on this subject, John Hunt.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving me 3 minutes to speak here. My name's John Hunt. I'm a property owner in a potentially affected area here in Shinnecock Hills. And I just wanted to say, first of all, I am obviously in favor of land preservation. I am not pro-development, and I am in favor of the adoption of a Graves Protection Act in New York State. Okay, I think we're one of only 4 states that don't have something in place already, which I think is an embarrassment to the state of New York. But I'm proud that our small town here is leading the charge to adopt this legislation. And I want to be supportive of our good neighbors, the residents of the Shinnecock Nation. I just had a couple of questions and concerns as a property owner. Like I said, I may be in one of the affected areas. I wasn't sure. I looked on the town website, and as of end of February, Area B, as you're calling it, what has always been known as the Sugarloaf Hill burial area since I was a child, as far as I'm aware. The western boundary of it was South Beach Road, according to all the online things I can find in local journals going back decades, according to the town of Southampton as of, I think, February 27th. And then as of March 10th, Area B not only has stricter restrictions than Area A, which is the Fort Hill area, but you also increased the size of the Sugarloaf Hill area by over 300%. Was that a mistake, adopting the new western boundary, or was that
Yeah, I can
something that
explain
just
that.
slipped by everybody?
So there's 2 variations of the moratorium. One that is the original map that you said.
Okay.
Boundaries. The second one, it doesn't call the other area Sugarloaf. It just expands the map with the same restrictions as Sugarloaf in an area where we've recently encountered human remains on Hawthorne Road.
That's where I live.
Yeah, so
Hawthorne Road.
Hawthorne, then you know what happened on Hawthorne Road, and,
Well, I do.
yeah, so.
And I'm gonna assume that these are, in fact,
So from anecdotal
Shinnecock
records, from
remains.
testimony from Shinnecock and others, the belief is that although that state map shows Sugarloaf as the main burial area, that
Yeah.
it likely that entire section was part of that. And Brian, or Kelly, if you want to speak to this, that map is probably, leaves out a large area that was
well, I
historic
understand, but
burial
maps as
ground.
far back as 1916 that are in the archives in the Suffolk County Historical Museum, the New York Public Library, they all focus on this same square that
Yeah.
goes
Yeah,
from Atterbury neighborhood over to South Beach.
Yeah, I have the 2 maps here if you want to see, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, because the Fort Pond area ended at Peconic Road. You just changed one of the words from South Beach to Peconic on the other area. It just greatly increased the size, and I feel like this kind of disproportionately affects people in this area. I mean,
Understood. There was some testimony when we had the first moratorium
okay.
that some of the nation members came and said that it was disingenuous, in a sense, to not include this other area where there was the recent discovery.
Okay.
So I'm just telling you the genesis. That's something the board has to
Okay.
consider.
Was an archaeological review of these remains even done, or no?
Yes.
It was?
By the
Okay, I
medical
read in the paper that Mr. Gomes identified them as Shinnecock remains. I didn't think that was appropriate. I said,
The medical examiner,
happy-
I think,
no, he said they were at least 50 years old.
Okay, it might
The
be.
medical examiner is neither an archaeologist
Right.
nor an anthropologist. So that was one of the other concerns I have is, do you have archaeologists available who can come work on the East End if, say, I want to reroute my driveway like I'm planning?
State has archaeology.
So yeah, the answer is
Because I
yes.
Googled archaeology services 11968 today, and the closest I got was University of Massachusetts offered to do it.
Archaeologists, anthropologists, very similar. There are a number of people who can do the type of review that's required, the stage 1A and B.
Are they
and-
local?
Yes, yeah, and there's Joanne McLean, for example, is local, lives out on the East End. The first bill, the Graves Protection Act actually requires the designation of a town archaeologist. So somebody who could then assist the town,
Okay.
you know, with going
And
through
is
that
this going to
process.
be their full-time job? Are they going to be available when we approach them and say, we have a project and we need it reviewed?
Yeah, on a as-needed basis, yeah, like the town
Well,
historian.
okay. So, you know, some of the concerns as a property owner are, you know, financing. If I did ever want to do a project on my property that I've been paying, you know, full market value taxes on for 20 years now. You know, you're going to be taking properties off the tax roll. I'm assuming the CPF, once you buy the land, you no longer pay taxes. But that means we're going to pay extra there. We already pay quite a bit. This new area you drew in, I counted 98 homes in there on a Google Earth picture, and all but 18 of us are in the Hampton Bays School District. So we already pay a tremendous amount of taxes. We are assessed as if we are in Southampton and valued at that, and then we are taxed at a much higher rate. In addition, Hawthorne Road is a private road. We have to pay to pave the road. We had to pay to pipe in water. We had to pay to pipe in gas. We have to pay to plow it every year. You know, this is, you're taking a property off of the roll for the Hawthorne Road Association also. And the property that you bought there in conjunction with the Shinnecock Nation is sitting there overgrown with weeds with a fence blocking it off and a sign saying that restoration is in progress for over a year. The restoration I've seen is a half dozen rocks and a totem, a memorial marker. And, you know, it's weeds and garbage now. And both the town and the Shinnecock Nation have signs on there claiming that they are restoring it. So, you know, I want to know going forwards, who's going to maintain these properties? Who has access to this? It's a private road where we live. Now it's been purchased with community preservation funds, with the Shinnecock Nation's funds, and with a GoFundMe fund. Does this mean all of Southampton has access, or people who bought a home and paid into community preservation fund have access? Where do they park? You blocked off all the way to the private road with a fence. You know, last time people were there were approximately 40 cars there for a ceremony, and when they were filming part of the documentary, The Conscience Point. And, you know, we try to be accommodating, but it's hard to, you know, live there and get by in a one-lane private road if it's going to be blocked off regularly. So, you know, those are just a couple of points that I worry about. And by no means was I asked to come here by my neighbors on my street or even people in this area. In fact, you know, some of my neighbors are here, and they are all in favor of you going ahead with this. And I think I am too. I support the moratorium. I see what's going on. It's uncontrolled development somehow. They're still doing it even though COVID seems to have stopped the meetings. It doesn't seem to stop the permitting process. But you know, the biggest concern I had was in my area, you are restricting both vacant parcels and developed parcels. So
Unless they do that stage 1A and B, archaeology, then they can proceed as long as, you know, the archaeology shows that it's unlikely to disturb any cultural resources.
how much does this cost in general? And can you give me 3 people I can call and get a quote? Local?
I could try to give, I mentioned Joanne McLean, but I
But
don't
if
want
she
to
can afford
promote.
to live around here as an archaeologist, it might be
Right.
really expensive.
There's a number of people who do this type of work. It's not uncommon. East Hampton has a law that's, you know, requires archaeology in certain properties that are near
Okay.
certain known
I've
features.
lived here for, you know, 40
And you
3
know,
years,
and
I've
you-
never come
and you
across
asked a
an
number-
archaeologist.
You had also asked a number of questions regarding management of these properties, and those,
Yeah.
you know, I just encourage you to reach out to Lisa Combrink, our CPF program manager, and she could assist you with how those, who has access to these properties and how they're managed.
Okay, well, the last thing was the CPF, you can use those funds to buy an undeveloped parcel?
Yes.
What do you have to offer, you know, say if we do a survey and we find remains on our property, can I offer to sell it to you
Potentially,
at
yes.
market value?
Sure, sure.
You can buy a developed property with CPF funds in Southampton town?
Yes,
You sure of this?
of course.
Most
No.
likely.
Well, give me an example of
We
a
purchased
a
many
private
properties.
home that you maintain
We
with
have over
CPF funds.
5,000 acres of properties that have been purchased with CPF, and a number of them have buildings on them. Either the buildings are...
You manage private homes?
Well,
Typically-
you want me to answer your question?
Okay, I do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If
Is Lisa here?
that property has a home on it, it may be deemed to be demolished at the cost of the owner who's selling it to the property, or the town will, or it's a land... I don't know why you're laughing, sir.
Oh, well, I'm
Explain
just
something.
saying, so if I want to sell you my property, I have to demolish the house?
No, that's not what I said.
You might
I
have.
said there are a number of properties that we have that have buildings on them
Okay.
that are part of the purchase process. They can either be demolished, or they're part of the property and they stay there, either historically as landmarked buildings. There's a whole different set of conditions that would come about during a purchase process with using CPF.
There's also,
All we require is a willing seller, and our CPF board reviews those properties. We have a member of the Shinnecock Nation on that board as well.
Okay.
They will make that determination, make a recommendation to the board, and we make a decision on that basis.
you know, sometimes sometimes a lot will have some construction on it, small cottage, whatever it is, but it has the potential for a much larger house, or
Right.
maybe even to be subdivided. It's not uncommon at all. In fact, I know there's pieces in Shinnecock Hills in this area that we're looking at right now that have some buildings on them, but quite a bit more of development potential that we may end up acquiring. So the answer to your question is, can we legally, I think, purchase a property that has development on it? The answer clearly is yes.
Okay. And if we're going to say this is probably all of the hills, why target just these areas? Why not do the whole hills then?
These areas, at least the Sugarloaf and the Fort Hill area, were recognized by the state. So that's what the original moratorium was drawn up based on that state map, and then expanded based on testimony at that original public hearing on the moratorium. And so I offered a second version of the moratorium that included the area where the recent find was, that you mentioned may or may not be Shinnecock.
I said I'm
Yeah.
going to assume it was. I
Okay.
just didn't think the due diligence was done to make
So
that
this is,
claim.
yeah. Okay.
Okay,
But
if you're expecting me to hire an archaeologist, you know,
Right.
why didn't they when they...
others have
You
suggested,
guys, when you bought the property that had remains on it.
others have suggested that this should be broader. There should be more properties. Should be all of Shinnecock Hills, whatever it is. What I have proposed in this legislation is two different versions, one that follows the state map precisely, and one that adds this other area that we believe have similar properties and likely could contain human remains. It's just an ounce of prevention
And are
in
you
these areas.
voting on either one or the other?
The board will decide whether to adopt one or the other, or neither, not both. Either one or the other, or neither. And this, again, it's a 6-month freeze. It doesn't say you can't build. There is an automatic provision to go ahead and proceed if you do this basic archaeology, which you were asking what it costs. My understanding, it could be a couple $1,000s, probably not more than that. It depends, obviously, on the size of the construction that you're doing, the area that's likely to be disturbed.
Okay.
So,
My one neighbor did want me to ask, how is this going to affect our taxes? Are they going to go down since our house resale values are going to plummet?
what makes you think your house values are going to go down?
I'm going to have a harder time selling it if there's restrictions on what can be done with the land.
You know, you could talk to the tax assessor, whether, the tax assessor, whether we have a sole assessor. Typically, where protections are in place, property values go up, not down.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry I took way more than 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's it for those who have said they wanted to speak on one of those 3 public hearings. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on hearing number 1, number 2, or number 3? Or let me go then to the board. As I said earlier, I was going to ask that we adjourn it to a Zoom meeting and then finish it up so that everybody could basically Zoom in. We have Chairman Polite here from the Shinnecock Nation. I think we have had ample time for people who were not in support of any of these pieces of legislation to come forward. We've had a number of hearings, and we have heard quite a bit of testimony for and against this. If we were to close it, I would ask that we leave the written record open, since that may be a surprise to people that we're closing it, for 1 week, and then it could be eligible for potentially the meeting of,
First meeting in September.
first meeting is September 8th, so we can get it onto the agenda on the 3rd at our work session, and then it would be eligible for a vote on,
That work session.
oh, that, okay, but the work set, but there's still gonna be an agenda for the meeting. So it still could be submitted and on the agenda, and eligible for a vote on September 8th. It's a daytime meeting, it's a 1 o'clock meeting. I'd be fine with that. I think we've heard from a number of people that they'd like it to move forward as quick as possible.
I would agree with that. I think we should move it as fast as we can. And Brian, just to you personally, you know, I've only been here 9 months, but I have to tell you that almost every day I've been here, we've discussed this. It's been probably one of the top 2 priorities until COVID came along. We tried to find other venues to have a big meeting. We tried for the high schools in Southampton and Hampton Bays. You know, we kicked around the possibility of Zoom, fully knowing that not everybody had access to a laptop or an iPad and could be on it. So I think the supervisor has done everything in his power. You know, I apologize for the length it took, but I think we're 99% there. You know, so I think we've done our due diligence. You know, I apologize for the delay, but I sincerely think that we've done it the right way. And, you know, we'll get to it as quick as we can, I promise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. You know, we've sat down, we've talked about this for a long time. When we decided we were going to do this and the legislation was in development, I remember being ecstatic about this, that it was a long time in coming. I appreciate your comments that it's been decades of administrations that have sort of run up to the finish line but never actually crossed it. I want to cross this finish line as soon as possible. I totally agree with Councilman Martell, and I'm sure other board members will express their opinions, but I think the time is now. I will commend the supervisor for trying to make the greatest of efforts to make this as transparent as possible. And I think that's been kind of the concern, you know, in everybody's mind, that we haven't been able to get this in front of people the way we're kind of used to as a result of COVID. But I agree with Councilman Martell that I think we've overcome that. Clearly, the presence here and the letters that we've gotten, and the emails that we've gotten, the communications that we've gotten, are the most telling that this is an issue that needs to get resolved quickly as possible. And I urge the rest of the board to consider that and move as quickly as possible. And I agree with the supervisor, and I agree with Councilman Martell. And thank you for your patience.
So I think it's a horrible thing to have your ancestors' final resting places desecrated. If we can do something to address that, I think we should. I think there are a couple things that I would like to see, keeping the comments open for a week, but there are some things that came up. One of those is is there, you know, sometimes when we write legislation, we know what we're talking about, or the lawyers know what they're talking about. Can we have some sort of easy list made up to say, you know, you have a piece of property, this isn't going to stop you from building. These are the steps you have to take, 1, 2, 3, because it does seem it's very easy. You get the archaeological review done, and then you may be good to go. You might not, but you may be. Also, I would love to see a list of those who can do that review. So if somebody says, okay, I'd like to get this done, well, here's a list. Let's make it easy for people, because that question has come up a couple times. So we're saying that there's people in town or nearby that can do it. Let's get that information to people. And I personally would love to know the price of it, just for my own 2 cents worth.
Jimmy,
But
are these things that you were able to put together?
Sure, yeah, we can.
just
I mean,
some quick and easy information that somebody doesn't have to go, okay,
No, I
you know,
and I
where's
believe
that
it's
info-
fairly straightforward, like you mentioned, Councilperson Lofstad. I think it is, and also, it's only a 6-month moratorium. I know
Right.
maybe that might be impactful to some people, but for generally, as we all know, 6 months goes pretty quick, you
Yeah.
know, in this world. I mean,
well, just because those questions did come up, and I would like to have the answer for people.
Just on a little pause on that, it's only a 6-month moratorium, but the idea of the moratorium is for us to basically do some additional archaeological research, to evaluate our code and put restrictions into the code if needed, so that we don't need the moratorium anymore. Now somebody coming in will then have.
This is what I have to do.
This is what I have to
Right.
do. So
then it'll be clear at that.
Right.
It's a very strict protocol, actually, that's set up for that. The state set that up, many other municipalities have set that up. There's, that's part of that process, I believe, is contained in the law, either inferred or explicit. And if it's not explicit, I think that, that's something to obviously look
Yeah.
at, but it pretty much is
I think
described
the
there.
clearer the better for everybody. I mean, because then you know what's going on, there's no
And I
question.
discussed this with one of the town attorneys today. So in the adopting resolution, there will be a directive to the planning department to do this study and to make the recommendations for, if they find, and it may change those boundaries. Maybe this larger area isn't needed, or maybe even a larger area is needed. So that will come out of the work of the planning, Janice Shure and land management. And we'll ask them, for basically to report to us within 4 months so that we have time then to put legislation in place prior to the expiration of the moratorium. But it's a great point. And Jim, if we could put together that
Just like a
list.
synopsis.
Yeah, and the cost and who's available to do it, and how they base their costs.
Because we want
We
it to
should-
be easy for people. We don't want them to not do it. We want them to do it. If we give them the information, people are more likely to do what we hope they would do out of the goodness of their heart. But I'm in full support of closing it and keeping the comment period open for a week and getting it on the agenda.
And we should probably reach out to others, Counselor. I mean, if we're going to collect a list of names of people who do this, I do believe that if a demand exists, the demand is going to be filled by people
Right.
who are qualified to do this.
Yes.
It's capitalism, and
Yeah.
it will be there. And the question is, what will be the price point on this? I think it's important that we do strike the balance, for people who do own these properties, and they're there, and they need to go through the proper steps with the archaeological review so that graves are not desecrated. I believe that this is legislation that is long overdue in this town, and that it absolutely needs to be happening. Probably in other towns on Long Island as well, and I hope that they follow our lead and look at their own laws and statutes, and that they enact something similar in other places on Long Island and upstate. Now, for the public edification, this has been open, this public hearing has been open since March, I believe, or was it February?
Right around early February.
Okay.
March?
In February, beginning of March. So, and we did not intend for a pandemic to happen. And believe me, when there was a bunch of us on a Brady Bunch screen, doing a Zoom meeting, we wanted to have a robust public debate on this because it is a moratorium and it is an important issue, and it is something that we would like the community to weigh in. I would be in favor of closing this for public hearing at this time, leaving it open for written submission to be put on our agenda at our next meeting.
And it was March 24th.
March 20th.
Right, so
It's been a while.
and boy.
Seems
what
like,
did-
seems like years.
Seems like 10 years ago.
I've never lived through a period like this. None of us have. You know, the last 6 months have been very challenging for all of us, and it's,
And Jim, I just.
nobody could have predicted this timing. And I think we all understand, too, that, you know, as the numbers have come down, and the numbers are much better, there's been points over the last 6 months, where there was no construction allowed by the governor's order. There was a freeze. It was a non-essential business. But we wouldn't even have thought of even having you in a room like this, right? This was, you know, so as time has progressed, you know, things have opened up a little. We don't want to let our guard down with the pandemic, but I think we're at a point, the fact that we can have a meeting and some people could come and speak. You know, I think these are really important pieces of legislation. I have wanted to be able to enact them for months now, and if the time is ready now, and I certainly appreciate everybody's patience, it really was in the interest of public health and nothing else that this particular, I can't speak for the decades and decades and decades where the Shinnecock people have been asking for this, but I can speak for this period since the creation of this legislation, that we've all acted in good faith. We just didn't predict a pandemic, you know, and all we wanted to do was protect everybody as best we could. So it sounds like the board is willing to close the oral record, the spoken record, and we'll leave the written record open. So if anybody wasn't able to come tonight, particularly since I said I was going to try to push it to a Zoom meeting, they can get their written comments to us within a week. And then this should be eligible for a vote on, give me that date again,
December 8th.
December 8th. Now, if somebody wants to be heard on the 8th, there is a public portion that'll precede the actual vote. So there'll be an opportunity to come. We're going to be limited in terms of space. So if 100 people want to speak to tell the board they hope that we adopt it, or we don't, what we'll try to do is something like this, and maybe people, if they want to queue up outside, and we'll let them in one by one, we'll just have somebody alert them, or if they want to provide us a textable number or something like that, we can probably set up a system where we can let you know when it's your turn to speak, and then we could have people come in, and at least they could be heard prior to us voting. But that will cut several weeks off the process. You know, that'll make it eligible for a vote pretty quickly. All right?
I just want to be clear, that won't be part of the hearing record, though.
It will not be
Close
part of
this
the hearing record.
Then that's public portion, it won't.
But a public portion, you can speak on anything in front of the board.
Absolutely, I'm just being clear, because sometimes people think that when they speak on a topic, it goes into that particular hearing record, but if it's closed, it will not.
No, it will not.
Okay, just want to.
It'll be in the record of that meeting.
It'd
They
be
can
better for them
submit.
to submit the comments.
Yeah, if
instead of
they
the period
submit
period.
written comments, then it's part of the record. Okay? And we encourage people to do that, but I know some people prefer to come and speak,
Well,
and so we'll try to accommodate
Absolutely,
that.
but it's not part, the hearing, you're closing this hearing right now.
Yes,
my point.
understood.
That's all.
Right.
With one hand.
Okay, all right, so I'm making a motion to close the spoken record, and we'll leave the written record open for 1 week.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You have
Okay, now you
public hearing 1 or 1, 2, and 3.
That's on all three.
No, no.
Oh, I got to do three separate motions.
You have
Okay,
to vote
so that was on,
one individually.
that was on the first one. On the second one, same motion, same second. All in favor?
Aye.
Sure.
Aye. And on the third one, same motion, same second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right. Okay, Hope. All right, thank you. No, I know I'm going to want to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to bring you over to the podium so that our cameras can capture your masked face, and we can capture your voice more importantly.
I just want to remind you that Stony Brook University has archaeologists, and Jay, when we helped preserve the 10 acres, they actually issued that report, because I still have a copy of it. So I want to encourage you to look at them as a resource, because they might be less expensive than the commercial anthropologists that do that study. It was an amazing report.
Yep.
So-
I know David Bernstein over there, if he's still there at Stony Brook, used to do some great archaeology work. Do you know Kelly? Is he still there? It's a long time ago. That was
Yeah, but
20 years ago. But yes, they have a good team over at Stony Brook in the anthropology department.
no one mentioned that, and that's what I just
Yep.
wanted. And I just want to thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Hope.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are now going to go to, thank you, Brian,
Thank
for
you.
coming. Get home safe. Thank you for your advocacy, Brian. All right.
Can I just say I'm happy to see all of you? It's been way too long.
Thank you. We're going to need Lisa Combrick. Is she?
Yeah, she's,
I see her. She's right there.
there she is.
All right, so, Madam Clerk, would you read the fourth public hearing notice?
I certainly will. Public hearing number 4, to amend the target area of CPF acquired lands on McGee Street, Town of Southampton, in the CPF Management and Stewardship Plan.
All right, thank you. Our CPF Program Manager, Lisa Combrick, is here, and Lisa will introduce us.
Do all this right. Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. I'm Lisa Combrick, the Community Preservation Fund Manager. Public hearing number 4 involves property that was purchased by the Community Preservation Fund in October 2017 on McGee Street. Suffolk County Tax Map numbers 900-158-3, 19.2, and 900-158-320, 7 acres in size. When the property was acquired, it was designated in the Community Preservation Project Plan as Village and Hamlet Green, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Target Preservation Area. So that was the category in the CPF Project Plan that the properties were included into as part of the acquisition, and that's typically what we do at any public hearing. The Southampton Town Aquatics and Recreation Corp., known as STAR, has contacted the town regarding the possibility of constructing an aquatic facility on the CPF property. So this public hearing is held to advise and include in that target designation the possibility of using the property for an aquatic center. We're not in fact changing the designation, but we're just as really a matter of information referencing the possible use for an aquatic center on that property.
Okay, now I just want to add a little bit to this. So this property is, I think, off of McGee. Is it McGee or Moses in that?
It's this property is on McGee Street.
On McGee.
Yes.
So this is the former IGHL piece. It was originally part of Tuckahoe Center proposal, which was going to be the large supermarket that was proposed. We then acquired it using CPF funds after the applicant and owner of the property withdrew the Tuckahoe Center proposal. And there was a building on it. That building was torn down, I think, before we acquired it, but it was a disturbed site. It was a developed site. And as you know, we had set aside property in Hampton Bays potentially for an aquatic center. That is still out there. We haven't rescinded that at Red Creek Park. And I think we had done a 2-year freeze or hold on that property while they tried to raise money for the potential aquatic center. They came to us and with some of the issues they were having with the Pine Barrens compatible growth area standards, clearing standards, and fundraising issues, location, now that the a beautiful pool was constructed at the eastern campus of Suffolk County Community College out in West Hampton, Northampton area. And it seemed like the service area would be better here, sort of being midway between the East Hampton indoor pool and the Suffolk County Community College indoor pool. It sort of falls squarely in the middle. And they were very interested in this property. And I did reach out to Assemblyman Thiel, who is sort of the guru on all things CPF, to make sure that we could actually do an indoor athletic facility on this property. And he advised me, yes, there was a process, and we'd have to go, which is what we're going through now, is amending this, this plan to allow for it. May not be describing it exactly. I think your terminology was a little bit better, because the original plan sort of allowed for it, but this is adding it as a use, correct, Lisa?
Right, it specifically identifies the aquatic center as a possible use on the property, really for everyone's information.
Right, so that's how we got here today, and yeah, I look forward to everybody's thoughts and comments on this issues.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes, Julie.
So, under the original adoption resolution, it says that the parcel was an appropriate site for park and recreation purposes. And I understand about Assemblyman Thiel specifying, but isn't a swimming pool recreation?
Yes, it is. No question about it. And when I spoke with Assemblyman Thiel also on the subject, he just thought it would be a good idea.
Agreed.
To advise, to clarify and include it so that there wasn't any question if the project proceeded later.
Okay.
Right, and allows the public to weigh in.
Yep.
too.
Correct. And this isn't an approval of any particular facility or of a particular project. It's just allows for that use as or identifies it as a potential use on the property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You know, and the idea of an indoor swimming pool has been, as long as I can remember, a sort of a dream. I remember West Hampton, there was an area, Shark, I think was the group or
Yeah.
something.
Well, it was the
But-
same, it was the same kind of situation, because people had to go to Brookhaven or to the YMCA, had to travel a long distance, there was no pool for them to go
Correct.
to on the western portion, so I see this as,
You know, and-
as the mirror image.
And with, you know, so many kids in the community needing to learn to swim before they get into the ocean, and with the town's need for training lifeguards and things like that, you know, it's been a logical desire, I think, for Southampton Town. You know, many towns do have a facility. We don't, but now we have that one. And I worked hard on that one when I was a Suffolk County legislator. But it is pretty far in the western portion of the town, so there's a large amount of our residents that it's challenging to go there. I know you take advantage of it. but,
Absolutely, yeah.
That's a
Well,
beautiful facility.
up until COVID.
Up until COVID. All right, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we have a distinguished guest in our midst. He just lists himself as Tim Bishop, but he'll always be Congressman to me. So, Congressman, do you want to come forward?
How do we actually know it's Tim, though?
There he is.
First off, let me thank the town board for continuing a dialogue with us over this issue for now several years. This is a project that, at least in my memory, dates back to the early 1990s. I worked on this, you can see how successful I was, at Southampton College with Fred Thiel, with the dearly departed John Ferry at Southampton Hospital, and it's proceeded in fits and starts since then. And this time we think we're going to be able to see it through to conclusion. It's an ambitious project. We got to raise $20 million, which is not easy under any circumstance. It's particularly not easy in the age of COVID, and it's not easy when Southampton Hospital is trying to raise multiples of that from the same people that we're trying to raise money from. So it's a challenge. I would urge you to approve this. I thank you for even considering it. I'm certain that as we go forward, reasonable, fair-minded people will point out flaws in the plan, point out perhaps flaws in the location, perhaps interpose objections, but this is the first step in a process that is going to go forward over a long period of time, and I would ask you to allow us to take that first step. We got to look at a lot of things, but I think there is universal agreement that this is a town that needs this kind of facility from a safety perspective, from a recreational perspective, from the perspective of trying to draw people here during periods of time when tourism is not as active. For example, if we are able to do competitions in this pool, that will bring people into our community. Let's hope that we're past COVID. I think, like I said, I've been working on this for almost 30 years, and I think it's something that will serve the town well, it will serve the town residents well, and yes, people can say wrong spot, but I don't think there's a location in this town that is sellable to donors where someone can't say wrong spot. So this is a spot, I think it can work. It's reasonably proximate to the village. It's reasonably proximate to County Road 39. And as Jay, you pointed out, pardon me, Mr. Supervisor, as you pointed out.
okay. Thank you, Tim.
It's roughly equidistant between the East Hampton pool and the Eastern Campus Suffolk Community College pool. And so I think we can get this done. Appreciate your willingness to even consider this, and I hope you support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Congressman.
All right, Kim Folks.
Good evening, and thank you so much to Lisa for all of her assistance on this, and also to you, Supervisor Schneiderman, and also to the town council. We are very enthusiastic about this location for a whole variety of reasons, but we do feel like it's very, very central. And I do just want to make it clear to the people that are listening, and also because I think there's been some conversations about what the mission of this pool is, and it's really truly to make swimming and wellness accessible to everyone in the community. Our mission for Southampton Town Aquatics and Recreation, STAR, we are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to enhance the wellness and water safety of our coastal community by providing an indoor pool and fitness facility called the Star Aqua Center. And really our objectives very much are to offer high quality, affordable programs and services that engage the community in aquatic and land-based fitness activities. And it will serve as a central hub for schools, individuals, swim clubs, teams, lifeguards, and first responders. I don't think that many people would argue that we are a coastal community in need of this pool. And I will say that in the research that I've recently done, I did find out that we, as Southampton Town, we actually employ over 230 lifeguards. That is for county, village, and town. That's a lot of ground to cover. That's a lot of beach. That's a lot of waterfront. And this facility would be amazing to not only teach our kids and our overall community, but also to provide a place for people to train. And so I think we are so excited about the opportunity. We are very open to meeting. We have reached out to most civic organizations and have offered to go and speak to them about their concerns and also certainly to voice their support. But we certainly appreciate being considered at this location and really do feel like this would be an absolutely great location for us. So thank you so much for the consideration.
Kim, before you step down, are you asking us on the Hampton Bays location to keep that active as well, or I'm concerned, a lot of people, this is actually not a bad location, honestly, for Hampton Bays folks. It's a lot closer than the community college, the Suffolk County Community College. It's a pretty easy access point to get to this location. But there's going to be some people in Hampton Bays who are disappointed, that really were hoping that they were going to get an aquatic center. And we obviously can't do both. We can't do both. It's just the economics wouldn't make any sense. So are you asking us to release the hold on the Hampton Bays site? Or do you want us to sort of just leave that in place and let it sunset while you look at both locations?
I would say the latter, because at this point, we want to build an aquatic facility. So we don't want to give up one opportunity until we are certain we have another location. So that would be our preference, is to, keep the property at Red Creek on the back burner for now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Kim?
Is this the same size unit that you were thinking of putting in Hampton Bays? It seems like it's a little scaled down compared to the Red Creek proposal.
And thank you for bringing that up. We actually, since I came on board last fall as the executive director for Star Aqua Center, at the time I came on board, we had a 3-pool facility that included a physical therapy pool and no fitness component. And after we did a lot of extensive conversations with our community and also just worked the numbers on a numbers basis, we knew that we would get more membership revenue by also offering fitness. But more importantly, the feedback that we got from the community was that the minute we said a 3-pool project at $25 million, people thought it was, like a water park. That is in no way our intention. The intention is truly to be an educational community hub. After getting that feedback, we scaled back to a 2-pool facility, so it would include a competitive pool for our teams, and then it would also, the initial floor plan would also include 3 lanes plus what we would call a splash zone for kids and some adults. And then also an area for aquatics, for aqua classes. So there would be on the second floor, at this point, the preliminary plan also calls for a fitness area, and then there would be a variety of other sort of multifunctional rooms that could be used for kids' parties or other meetings for community purposes.
Okay. And I want to see this happen. I do. I was involved in a project out in Montauk at the Montauk Community Center, or the Montauk Playhouse, and they've really struggled to raise the money. How do you feel good about your ability to raise the money to do this?
We really do. Despite the pandemic, we've made some very, very significant inroads. And just being able to bring into the conversation the possibility of locating this in Southampton proper has also helped us. We are by no means representing a specific property or misrepresenting this by saying that it has been, dedicated. But there is significant interest in that.
To get $20 million in commitments, how long do you think that will take?
Well, that's the $20 million question. I would like to think that it could take us a year to 2, because I really feel like this is long overdue, And I feel like there are enough people in our area that have the means that would like to see this happen for this community. And there's no question about the fact that there's a need. I think if we can treat this as a true legacy project, which it is, I really would be hopeful that we could raise the money and be putting a shovel in the ground within a 2-year process.
Okay.
And having this commitment from the town would help in raising money. For
Immensely. I mean, it really is the difference between us getting significant commitments and not. Because if I'm going to write a check for a 7-figure contribution, I want to know where it's going. So that's why on behalf of Star Aqua Center, I really ask that we get this actually voted on and dedicated. And at that point, we could also talk about the Red Creek.
Would this facility, you said this is an educational facility, would it be open to schools to send students there? And just in a way of clarity and underscoring something that is important to the community. So our local public schools would be able to send, I don't know, their 4th graders or whatever there?
Absolutely.
As a part of the programming and.
Absolutely. That's a driving force. So very much like the Y in East Hampton, those that are 18 and under are free to use the facility. We see this very much, I've already been in touch with, people that are involved at the Y, and we very much want to structure it. They have sort of paved the way to show us not only what a facility like this can do for its community and how it serves the community and brings a community together, but it has become such a highlight. I mean, we're taking kids from this area and taking them out to East Hampton, for an hour in the pool, or 45 minutes in the pool. They're 45 minutes one way and 45 minutes the next.
My children learn to swim there.
Okay. So
And we live in Southampton town.
Okay. So, and likewise, there are many kids who are super talented, one of whom is going to be in our, our promotional video. She's got a full scholarship on the basis of her swimming competition. I mean, the possibilities are endless, not to mention the 40-plus jobs that a facility like this would provide to our local community. Just leadership, all kinds of different programs. I think that any of us who have participated on any level of team sport throughout our schooling, we can all speak to what we learned about ourselves, and what we learned about being a team. And I think about leadership and discipline and just overall physical activity. So I really emphasize, and I know that I'm in some form preaching to the choir on this, but we're a coastal community, and this is long overdue.
All right. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Kim, I just wanted to add, also, we had a Zoom call about sustainability issues and how your organization is going about this. So I just quickly wanted to thank you for that opportunity. And I think all of us at the committee felt very reassured by your attitude towards that subject and what you plan to do. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And we do feel that the sustainability is a huge, not so much a selling point, but I think it's what anyone would want. It's how we would want to proceed with this. This is for the future.
Well, it's a town goal, so I appreciate.
Well, and I appreciate you saying so. But this is really for our future, and the facility has to sustain itself into the future. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there a Leith McLaughlin? Leith, hi. Come forward.
Hello. My name is Leith McLaughlin, and I live at 436 Hill Street in Southampton Village. I'm here tonight to speak for my neighbors and a number of people in the community who could not come for this scheduled hearing. for many reasons, for the quarantining but first, I'd like to say that we object to this public hearing to amend the CPF to enable an indoor swimming pool and sports complex. We ask that this hearing be tabled for several months or until the health issue is stabilized and the public feels free to attend. Second, this board knows very well that this is a controversial proposal, and given the history of the site, I mean, you know, there is a safety and traffic situation at McGee and County Road 39, and all those village streets go right to McGee if you live in that area. Okay. Also, and we really wanted to question the Red Creek location. We felt that we feel that that's more of an area where the traffic wouldn't be such a problem. I mean, I am so much for a pool in this community. Don't get me wrong, but this area is really not the place for it. So that's really all I have to say. And actually, I was at a couple of meetings for a pool many years ago, and so I am for it, but just not there. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. There's one other name I have here, Tom Hadlock. Don't see Tom here.
No, I don't see him here.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? Lisa, I have a couple questions, if you could come forward. And, you know, we certainly could leave the written record open if the board wishes
I
to
would
do that.
request that, and I'll speak to that in a minute.
Okay, so if the board moves forward with amending the plan, which may already even allow this, but just as an extra step, is there another point when the actual building is proposed that the public will have to weigh in, or is this it?
This is definitely not it. I think has been mentioned, this is a very preliminary step. As Congressman Bishop mentioned, it's maybe a first step in the official process, but I'm assuming that this proposal would undergo site plan review and I don't know what other municipal
Would it
approvals.
be back
but-
before the town board at any point to approve the construction on this? There must be a public hearing on that, I would think.
The agreement itself, because we haven't.
Right, to enter into an agreement with them to construct a facility where the public could then see exactly what is being proposed, how big it is, you know, what's in it, you know.
My understanding is that you know, a review of those types of things, including the layout, the traffic pattern, and that type of thing would be addressed before the planning board, I think in the approval process or review process as part of site plan review. As the town attorney mentioned, you would be reviewing at some point, if this did go forward, a license agreement. If it was the board's wish, we could schedule a public hearing on that. Typically, we would, you would entertain that kind of thing at in a simple resolution. But if that happened, I would imagine that would be far down the line, you know, the entertaining of a license agreement for use of the property, because you wouldn't really know if you entertained that whether or not even a building was going to be built, because it hadn't been approved yet.
And that would have to happen before a planning board review, a licensing agreement.
Well, I haven't been in this particular situation before, but it's a chicken and an egg kind of thing, you know, it might happen at the end of that process.
The planning board would have a hearing, like they would have to do the traffic analysis and all those things to
Right.
see that it meets
Look at all
the.
those things, or the.
Is this a special permit that would be required, or?
We have to look at the code to see if what is required to put this type of facility on this property.
Even
But
though it's a
certainly,
town
CEQA would have to be followed. You know, you
property?
have to do traffic analysis, and all that has to be covered by a CEQA determination on the particular application that may come before the planning board, as Lisa mentioned at some point. So everything right now is in the abstract, so
Right.
at the time when it was more concrete and it was a specific application made to the planning board, then you would certainly know more about exactly the type of facility you're talking about and traffic issues and other environmental review issues that.
Could affect the scale of the operation and things like that.
Right.
Okay. The other thing is, it's not easy raising money. And one of the tools that is often employed, was certainly done at SYS, is naming privileges. And I just wanted, the building could be named, the pool could be named, the locker rooms could be named. Does CPF allow for that? Can a separate entity that's raising money for a building give naming privileges or sponsorship? Are there limits to that? If we didn't, let's say we didn't want the pool to be a certain company or something like that, do we have a right to say no and say, I don't want it to be the whatever, Coca-Cola swimming pool,
I don't know the answer to that. That's something we could certainly look into. I mean, I've reviewed the CPF rules and regulations many times on a number of different topics. This hasn't been one of them, but even in my review, I haven't seen any limitations on that kind of thing, but I don't believe that it's specifically addressed either in
We could
chapter
find out,
one.
because that's, is a very effective way to raise money. Somebody might want to make a very large donation, but have it named after somebody, maybe themselves.
Mr. Supervisor, may I comment?
Congressman Bishop, sure.
No, I can stay right here.
I don't know, you can't, the problem,
Okay, fine. Sorry, Lisa. That's an excellent question. Thank you very much for asking it, and we will absolutely need the answer to that question. Because, I mean, realistically, raising $20 million is going to require perhaps one 8-figure gift. It's going to require multiple 7-figure gifts. Somebody's going to want their name on it. Now, and so we will need to know their answer. Now, whether it's the building or the pool or the recreational pool or the exercise area, that's a tool for fundraising. And so if whether it's Lisa that's going to get us the answer or whatever, we would need to know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Lisa. So, I think you've answered, those were really my two questions. And I remember when Taco Center was presented, and that was a much more intensive use on a much larger piece. There was concerns about traffic on McGee, but a lot of it was because the shoppers by the consultants on admission for the developer were people who were going home from work, who were westbound, needing to cross the street, and then cross the street again and go back west, and there was no green arrow, and it was a, shopping center, people are constantly coming and going, whereas this is it's only so many people go swimming at a time. It's a much less intensive use, not even comparable. That there will be some traffic impacts, and depending upon, obviously, how big the pool is, how many competitions, and, what restrictions we're able to put in place in terms of, how a property like this would be managed. But I'm just trying to better understand what opportunities the public will have should we close this today. We close it and we say, just written comments for a week, as we typically would do. Will there be opportunities to come before this body, or is it now going to be, or are we delegating it to the planning board from here on in? I'm not really clear on that, but.
It's something I can discuss with the town attorney's office, but I think certainly at the planning board level, there would be ample opportunity for public participation and review of any proposal, because that board would be doing the review from the planning perspective on whatever, whether it's a special exception or it's site plan only. and that would include plans of the building, the
If that's the case,
layout,
though,
that
that
kind
this
of
is
thing.
the last time we'll see it, other than the license agreement, and we are in a pandemic, and this is the first hearing we've had on it, I don't really see a terrible problem with allowing one more hearing date.
And I did speak with one resident who was concerned about the notice and said, and actually had requested copies of some documents. And I advised her that during the pandemic, this board's practice has been typically to, even if you did close a public hearing, to allow a minimum of 2 weeks written comment period. And I know a number of letters have come in, some in favor, some asking for more time, so, you know, it
All right, well,
certainly
I'll take
can't
that up
hurt
with the board in a
to,
minute and see what the consensus of the board is. I think we're pretty excited about the prospects of having an indoor pool, certainly, and, you know, and this seems like a worthy property for consideration, certainly. All right, any other questions for Lisa? All right, is there anyone who didn't speak who wanted to be heard on this? All right, let me turn to my colleagues here. Rick, do you want to go first? Do you want to give a second date
And
for
I'm in
here?
favor of a pool, but I'd like to push it along for another hearing.
Another hearing?
Yeah.
Give the public a little more opportunity?
I'm comfortable with closing it. I think this is the beginning of a process that's going to be rather lengthy, and at several steps along the way, there will be ample time for public input on the structure, on the traffic, on the use, the location, and I think, you know, for me, as a town board member, I would be willing to close it at this point, at least for public portion, leaving it open for written submission.
John?
I'm in favor of keeping it open for one more round. We've gotten a number, I just think in the interest of having everybody have their opportunity to speak. I know there were some people, some emails that I had gotten where people had felt that they hadn't been noticed well, and I think it's worth holding it out for one more round.
To not be criticized for trying to railroad it through in a pandemic kind of
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
I understand. Julie, what's your thinking?
So I just want to restate that although the resolution that is in the packet, it doesn't consider the actual project. It's just for clarifying the use, as Lisa said. The CAC did reach out to me, and they just heard about this on Thursday.
Which CAC?
North Sea CAC.
North Sea, okay.
Yes, North Sea CAC. I have not heard from the Southampton CAC, but I will reach out to them. And just for that reason, they felt that they, many of their members are older, just did not want to come out due to COVID, and it was a very short time period. I think that leaving the public hearing open and perhaps having another one, I think is a really good idea. And I just think that naming issue, is Lisa still here? That, I would like to know the answer to that, because that seems like it's a big consideration. So if we can get that information, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, it could be a case of first impression, quite frankly, with a CPF property. It's certainly been done at the state level, as parks levels. We're all familiar with Jones Beach Theater, Coca-Cola. The state has done it effectively. And I think some of the county facilities have had some naming. But
Sure,
as far as the CPF.
The county ball field is what, Astoria Federal
Sure.
Credit
The
Union.
baseball time and.
Citibank Field or whatever.
Sure, no, it's been done, and I think it's been done effectively. I'm
Well, no,
not
it's Beth
familiar-
Page. I think Beth Page is the
Is
the
now,
big Ducks.
it's Beth Page now.
It was
It's-
Astoria.
Oh, yeah, sure,
It
it's been
was-
different names over the years, but, and certainly Jones Beach.
And those are CPF properties?
No, those
Oh,
are
they're not, okay, okay.
I don't know
Got
if
it.
there's, CPF is only, as you know, restricted to the east end.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's.
Yeah, we'll
any
get an
facility.
answer. I think that's important.
And in that time, we can keep the hearing, schedule another hearing and give people time.
Have we
to-
heard from the village? I mean, it's outside of the village, but it's close to the boundary of the village. So that might give the village a little time to also weigh in. All right, I mean, it sounds like the majority of us would like to keep the hearing itself open, give people more time. I hope you can indulge us with that. I think we're concerned that, and we did have some testimony today that some people couldn't make it today that wanted to speak, that, because of the pandemic, trying to push it through too quickly could be seen, as an effort to sort of railroad the project through without public comment. And we don't want to be seen that way. So as much as some of us would like to move it swiftly, I think it's in the public interest to allow one more hearing on it. So what's, Sunday, when's the next town board meeting?
It's September 8th.
September 8th, so,
1 o'clock meeting.
that's
the
a.
same one,
Yeah, so that's a 1 o'clock meeting?
Yes.
All right, so we'll have had an evening meeting and a daytime meeting, that's good. All right, I'll make a motion to, am I adjourning or?
You're adjourning.
Adjourning, or not recessing, adjourning the public hearing to September 8th at 1 PM.
Second?
And the record, anybody can submit written comments throughout the process. So, second by Councilwoman Lofstad. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, thank you to those folks from Star who came out, and to the woman from Hill Street.
It kind of begs the question of our meeting location due to the pandemic with this public hearing and others, the size of the room. And if people are concerned about coming here because of the pandemic, which is certainly reasonable, I wonder if there's something else we can do as far as accommodating a larger.
Yeah, it's challenging.
I think we tried and we got.
Yeah, I know.
Zoom
We tried-
allows lots of people, but it's very hard to control, and not everybody has access, as I think you pointed out earlier. And we don't have the auditorium available. We're pretty limited. And the governor did basically, well, he said you can conduct business via Zoom, There was no intention of stopping the wheels of government through this pandemic.
Right.
We're supposed to be doing the people's business.
We can't.
And, and people have to understand that sometimes this is the best we can do. I don't think it's that hard, though, to come up with a way that if we have more than 10 people, that they can wait in their car, whatever it is, and we'll text them, or when it's their turn to speak. There's got to be a way of doing it.
I think the logistics may be difficult, but I think it may be doable.
Yeah, they do that at the restaurants. They did that, I took my son shopping the other day, and it's just like, you have to make an appointment to go shopping, for clothing. So they texted me when it was our turn to go into the store. This was out by Tanger, so
And the doctor's office, too. You don't have to sit in a cool waiting room. You can listen
So
to-
it's got to be a way to do it.
Yeah,
And is September 8th a day meeting?
It is, yes.
it is, 1
p.m.
o'clock. And we certainly want to hear from the public on all of these issues. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want people to be afraid, concerned, stay home, not,
And they can, these are live streamed. It seems like,
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I think we hear them.
We have an
smaller
internet,
groups. That's.
we have free internet in this building, and I don't know how far around the building it extends, but people potentially could watch the meeting from an iPhone, right? It's live streamed. And plus, we'll text them as soon as it's their opportunity. And if there's an empty seat, they can come in at any time,
Or you
And
could have
since it's an afternoon meeting, we have all day and all night.
And we have, obviously, May
Okay.
and Paula and people to assist. Anyway, I'm just saying, it seems like we ought to be able to do this. All right, so let's move on to the next public hearing. Sunday, would you read the 5th hearing notice?
Certainly. Public hearing number 5 on the acquisition of land at Codesco LLC, Noyak, and amend the CPF Management Stewardship Plan to include the property.
All right, Lisa Combrink, our CPF Program Manager, will introduce this.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, board members. The subject of public hearing number 5 is the potential acquisition of the Codesco LLC property, which is located at 1030 Millstone Road in Noyak. I'm going to point it out on the aerial to you. Outlined in yellow, it's a flag lot here. As you can see from the map, the areas in green are already town-owned properties. Some of them are CPF purchases, others are related to subdivisions. The property is Suffolk County Tax Map number 922-145.7. The property is 5 acres in size. It's a wooded piece. It's in the Aquifer Protection Overlay District and is zoned CR 200. It's already included in our CPF project plan in the Eastern GIS, Great Swamp, and Pominock Path target areas. It's filled with pitch pine and oak forest, and it's at a relatively high elevation. As I mentioned, we own the property to the north. We also have made offers on 2 adjacent properties. I'm going to point those out to you. That would be this lot and this lot. We also have offers out on, which we should be hearing on those 2 properties within the next couple of days, I hope. The purchase price on this property is $850,000.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Combrink?
No, just that we know this property and area well.
We
It's
do.
a water recharge area, we know that. And
Okay,
is it?
thank you. Lisa, is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this possible acquisition? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, but leave the written record open for 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that's closed. Record open for 2 weeks. Sunday, would you read the 6th public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 6, to consider amending Town Code Chapter 123, Building Construction, to authorize the extension of building permits and waive any applicable extension fees due to COVID-19.
All right, Kathleen Murray, our Deputy Town Attorney, one of 2 Deputy Town Attorneys, is here to introduce us.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, members of the Town Board. As you know, on March 20th, 2020, in recognition of the COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Cuomo, pursuant to Executive Order Number 202.8, instituted a statewide pause aimed at achieving uniform safety for everyone in the state. In particular, this pause directed that all non-essential businesses close any in-person functions and temporarily banned all non-essential gatherings of individuals for any reason. As a result, many businesses, including the construction industry, were unable to work despite having properly issued Southampton town building permits. The purpose of this local law is to recognize the inability of property owners to have work done during this time, and more specifically, to authorize the extension of any open building permits that existed between March 20th, 2020, the date of the statewide pause, and July 21st, 2020, which is the date in which town hall facilities were open to the public without meaningful limitation. You may recall that Supervisor Schneiderman executed Emergency Order Number 13 of 2020 on July 21st in order to initially accomplish this permit extension and to waive any fees associated with that permit extension. Because, however, the supervisor's emergency order was enacted pursuant to New York State Executive Law, Section 24(1)G, in that it temporarily suspended or modified a local law, it may only be effective for a period of 5 days, subject to renewal. So rather than continually extend the emergency order for the next 6 months, this local law would codify this provision within the town code. If the board has no questions, there is a resolution of adoption on the agenda later today for your consideration.
All right, any questions? Thank you.
Just the start would be when we adopt it, and the end of this would be 6 months later.
Yes, so it's actually already happening, Councilwoman Lofsted, pursuant to the supervisor's executive order, which we've been continually extending. I think we're up to at least 4 or 5 right now. It was already instituted in March for that 6-month period. I believe the end date is about October.
Okay.
Ross, with your GIS department, has went into the GIS system and basically extended all those permits subject to the supervisor's emergency order. So the function of this local law would really just to make, procedurally, we wouldn't have to keep extending those emergency orders. It would just be codified in the town code.
So the 6 months has already started?
It has.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, so it's any building permit that was active during the pause period of, March to.
20th to July 21st.
Right, so if you had an active permit, we're adding 6 months to it. To that date, not to the date you pass it, so,
Got
And waiving fees.
And waiving any fees.
and waiving fees, yeah. Okay, any other questions? And, I would just say that, I've been doing this every 5 days, and I will have to do it every 5 days until the end of that basically 6-month period, which I'm willing to do, but I think it's really not in the spirit of the provision that says that if you're suspending a local law, you only can do it for 5 days. We have an opportunity here to actually do it with the whole board, and I would prefer it be done that way. I think it's the right thing to do, more in spirit with that short-term provision. All right?
Good.
All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? I'm going to make a motion to close and not leave the record open so that this is eligible for a vote tonight. Okay?
Yes.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. And just on the motion, so part of the reason why I don't feel it's necessarily to leave the record open is because this provision's already in place. It's already in place. If people had plenty of opportunity to comment on it, if they weren't happy with it. I haven't heard actually any complaints about it from any side, so it really is more of a housekeeping item perhaps than anything, and I think it's fine to be able to close it. Any other comment?
If the restriction is changed, timeframe wise, our options are, instead of going to the full time, if, say, something happens, a change in the governor's executive order or whatever happens.
Well, so now that this is before you, Councilman Bouvier, we can amend the local law if you wanted to change, if you want to revisit the time frame as we stand here today, or if in the future you want to revisit that time frame, we can just amend the local law.
We can just amend it.
So now we've brought it into this forum before you, just like any other local law.
All right, thank
It will
you.
actually be part of the town code. This one.
For a period of
One
time.
leftover from the
Right.
pandemic that will actually remain in the town code.
No.
I guess you
It
could.
won't remain in the town code.
Well, you could repeal the section at a later
I
date.
could. If that makes you comfortable, I can
Yeah.
repeal it. If you'd like me to come back after that last one on July 21st, 6 months from July 21st.
Yeah, I
Happy to come
personally would
back.
feel more
Sure.
comfortable with it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I have no issue with that, other than the historic relic, because we're never going to forget this period, that's for sure.
For sure.
Somebody will.
Yeah, well, I certainly will.
I won't.
Okay, all right, so the motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so the hearing is closed. Madam Clerk, the last, no, sorry, it's not the last, should we take a couple of these together?
Yeah, the last two, 7 and 8 together.
Yeah, so
Kara is
let's,
here.
let's take 7 and 8 together.
Kara will speak to it, Jay.
Madam Clerk, would you read the hearing notice?
Public hearing number 7, to consider the lease of the property located at 112 Old Riverhead Road, West Hampton Beach, for the purposes of a community center. Public hearing number 8, public hearing to consider the acquisition of the property located at 112 Old Riverhead Road, West Hampton Beach, for the purposes of a community center.
Okay, yeah, so the first one's the lease with an option, the second one is, first is the lease option to purchase, second one is just the outright purchase.
Yeah, the
So-
second one is the acquisition, which covers both lease or purchase, so, we can consider both. The
Okay,
lease
so
or-
Kara, do you want to quickly introduce this?
Sure.
Okay.
So we're considering the lease or the purchase of the property located at 112 Old Riverhead Road in West Hampton Beach. The building is pictured, the property is pictured here, in the building as well here. Last time this was on, at the last hearing, I discussed some of the terms of the lease, and I can kind of just quickly summarize that for the board. The lease term, the initial lease term is for 10 years. There are 2 options to extend the lease term for 10 years each, so it's a total of 30 years. The initial annual rent would be $200,000 with a 2% annual increase. Town would pay the taxes, which is approximately $16,000 annually. Town would be responsible for ordinary repairs, maintenance, and upkeep of the premises. The landlord would be responsible for any structural repairs and roof repairs during the lifetime of the lease. The landlord would be responsible for the elevator maintenance and repairs to the HVAC system for the first 2 years of the lease. And the town would have an option to purchase at any time at a purchase price of $4,065,000, which would be adjusted by the CPI index. The purchase of the building, if the board's going to consider that, the purchase price would be $4,065,000. The building was purchased somewhere between 2004 and 2000. The building was built somewhere between 2004 and 2008. The building is approximately 20,000 square feet in size. It consists of a 7,000 square foot first floor, a 5,000 square foot second floor, and about a 7,000 square foot basement. The building has an open floor plan containing restrooms on both the first and second floor. There are 2 elevators. One is a freight elevator that has a capacity of 10,000 pounds. The second floor was used at one time as a restaurant, so it contains plumbing and gas connections for a commercial kitchen. The building contains an automatic fire sprinkler system and has a geothermal HVAC system. The parking lot contains approximately 60 parking spaces and is accessed by 2 driveways. If the town was to consider the purchase is subject to a Verizon antenna lease, which has an annual rent income for the town of about $15,000 plus a 2% annual increase. There are 2 years left on the initial term of the lease, and Verizon has the option to extend the lease for 4 additional 5-year terms. The County of Suffolk has expressed interest in leasing a portion of the second floor of the building. They have told us that the annual rent that they would pay would be $72,000 with 3% annual rent increases each year. The initial term for the county would be 10 years with 1 additional option to extend for 5 years, 15 years total. And the county has also expressed an interest in possibly leasing the basement of the premises as well. So.
And either of those 2 spaces would be needed for the senior center, community center, youth center functions?
Yeah, so both Diana Weir and Liz Dwyer are here. They can speak about the uses of the premises, and that would be the first, basically the first floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for Kara?
Is the county rental upstairs, is that the whole 5,000 square feet?
No, right now, I think they're looking at about 3,600 square feet.
Yeah, somewhere in that range, but between 3,000 and 3,500 right now. Yeah.
And we would have to do some work, though, to get it ready for them.
They're looking to have us build out the spaces they're looking for, yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Any work that would be done on this building, it would have to be done whether we lease it or purchase it, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've done all our inspections, all our due diligence, we've had an engineer, we've done all that.
The contract would be subject to all of that, so, yeah.
But we've had our town engineer and another engineer take a look at the entire property.
Right.
A number of times.
Yeah, and actually at that time, there was a need to revisit the roof, which was already done, prior to the lease or the purchase, so it's already had, that work's already been done.
No, we haven't done it yet, but it would be.
Oh, we haven't? I'm sorry.
We haven't done the phase one, I'm sorry, we haven't done the phase one yet, but the contract would be subject.
Would be subject to that.
Any closing?
Yep.
I thought it was.
So, Kara, just to distinguish number 7 from number 8, if we move forward with number 7, the lease with the option to buy, should we want to then acquire it, we'd have to, a whole brand-new hearing, right? We'd have to do another hearing to acquire, whereas if we are interested in acquiring it, we would basically withdraw or not act on number 7, we'd just go right to number 8.
Correct.
Right, but the terms for the acquisition are the same, right? The same price.
Same price,
And the same,
correct.
same conditions of the sale.
Yeah, except that in the lease, you know, that if we don't act on it immediately, the purchase price is subject to that CPI index.
Right, and we'd have to start paying rent for whatever that interim period is.
Right, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I understand it, and I wasn't here at the last public hearing, but I understand our controller had advised us that the conditions for purchase were better for us financially and otherwise at this time.
Correct, with the interest rates being so low
Yeah.
at this time, yeah, we felt it would be better to acquire the building.
Thank you.
I think that's accurate. Any other questions for Kara? All right, who else wishes to be heard? Diana, Liz?
You guys have been
Nancy?
through this once already, I understand. I admire your patience.
Is this the, oh yeah, this is the second hearing on one
On
of
the-
the, on the lease with the
on
option,
number
and the
7,
first
yeah.
on the acquisition, yeah.
So basically, we have the same feeling. It's much needed in that western part of the town. We have a large senior population.
Diana, I hate to do this, could you just identify yourself? It's not like I don't know you.
I'm sorry. Diana Weir, Director of Housing and Community Services.
I
Thank you.
recognize you even with the mask, but
Thank
just
you,
just
Board.
for our records.
Yeah, we did discuss the last time that this is a great building, and we can use those services in the western part of the town. The Youth Bureau would also be utilizing, and they do work in West Hampton now. I mentioned that we did do a trial, a senior citizen lunch program at the library, which could only accommodate a small amount of seniors, and it was very well received. And I think that once they know that this is happening, where we could have more activities that we do in the programs that we have, people will use it. So I do think it's wise of the town to embark on this.
This is a softball question. Why are senior centers important?
Oh, my goodness. Speaking as a senior.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, seniors that are isolated and probably living at home, whether they're widower, their children are far away. Not only is the food important because it's a balanced, nutritional meal that's prepared, according to dietary requirements, and the social part of it is very, very important for seniors. And I will say that our senior division has been amazing throughout this. I said it before, the staff worked nonstop. We more than doubled our senior nutrition program as far as we could. But something like this is what seniors need at a certain time. We do have, daycare facilities as well. Today, I think it was today, some of our senior staff, because the center has been closed, went out on a bus and went to visit some seniors who are normally persons who come in. They went with pom-poms and a poster, and they went and knocked on the seniors' doors and gave them a hi, and it was a "we miss you." I mean, the seniors were so excited to see everybody. So I think they're going to take their show on the road again, but I'll let.
And these programs, the food, it's relatively affordable, right? It's like a
Well, it's
sliding
a
scale. I know it's
voluntary,
subsidized.
it's a voluntary donation, and it's about $2.50, or we're $3.50. Yeah, we're $3.50.
And this is through, like, the county helps subsidize it, the state?
This is a federal program
Federal.
that comes through the county and the Office of Aging, and it's a tremendous program. We do deliver home-delivered meals, which is what we did throughout the pandemic, so that always continues, and those are for seniors that can't get out. But we have a transportation program that seniors that are willing can take the bus, come to the center, they get have their lunch, socialize, play games, yoga classes. I mean, there are a lot of different things that they're doing. Currently, one of our senior staff members, Heather, has been doing an internet program with the seniors so that they can watch the yoga lessons now and do them at home. So we have been, or the senior staff has been amazingly aggressive in trying to reach out to the seniors, helping them learn how to do the things that they need to do with the computers. So that's also, something that's important for the seniors as
In terms of
well.
accessibility for the, you have a bus, you run the transportation
Yes.
program, so
Yes.
this is easy to bring people in, it's ADA accessible?
Yes, it is, the ground floor is a beautiful facility.
Okay.
We had looked at the second floor, but that would make it a little more difficult, because if the elevator was not working, then seniors wouldn't be able to access. So I think the way it's been configured and planned right now is going to be very, very
There's a
effective.
lot of natural sunlight in there, too.
Oh, it's
which is
beautiful.
great,
It really is a nice place. Plenty of parking, because a lot of seniors drive themselves. They're able to drive and can do that, so they come and park and leave whenever they want and come and go and have their lunch. So I think it's very important to address that part of the town as well. It's a big town. It's a long drive, and with traffic, the way traffic is now and may continue to be now that we have so many people staying here for a while. So I think it's a good step, and I applaud the town for doing that, because
I should say that another component of the senior is the American Legion, and not all of them, please, guys, don't come after me, but, represent a fair portion of the senior population as well. In the West Hampton area, we have a high senior population. I think it's upwards of 29%, something like that.
yeah, I
Pretty
think
high
this
number.
has
That-
better
I think
numbers
I have
for
that
you. It's a
right.
little higher than that now.
But also that, we have a traditional, longstanding arrangement with the American Legion to share the facilities, but also that we don't have community facilities for a lot of our civic meetings as well. So places for those meetings to take place are, I think, very important, along with, I think Nancy is still here.
Yes, yes.
And our youth services, the proximity to the new pool. I also envision that our bus services could perhaps be taking people there, and a lot of things that we haven't thought of. We're about 1.5 miles from the West Hampton Beach School District for after-school services that may be potentially available. So there's a lot of building with a lot of things that we can do with it, so I'm very excited for this to go forward.
I think it's a good move for the town, because if you figure paying $200,000 a year rent, every 5 years, that's $1 million, and you have a 30-year commitment, plus the maintenance and upkeep and all the other things, you're talking $6 million. Might as well buy it now for 4.1 almost, and
Right, and then if
it
we get
just
the
makes
revenue,
more
we get the
sense.
revenue from the cell tower.
Yeah.
We
And
get the leases.
Yes,
and
yes.
Before we're
So-
done, the carrying costs are very limited.
Yeah, I think
And
that's a
hopefully we'll
wise
get
move.
appreciation on the land and the building, so. It just seems like, I think that's why the controller was saying that this is the
Yeah, it makes
the right
sense.
thing.
'cause,
We can borrow
I'm a
at
numbers
such low
person
rates.
too, so I got that 200,000 a year, let me see, 6.
Yeah.
That's a quick.
There's also significant investment that we're going to put into the building, and if we lease it,
Yes,
in
we
the
do,
end,
we
we'll
have
end up
appraised
buying
it. We know
And
that,
that increases the town's value as well. You go through that with Moody's every time you have a property.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea, but I'll
well, it's an underserved area, and I think even the clerk could potentially do some things there, too.
Absolutely.
Probably would
And in the
love to.
future, I'm going to learn how to play mahjong
And even
or something
permits,
there with
you
John
know,
Bouvier.
No, but-
trustees. all
Right,
those
these
things.
satellite offices, I think we all have to understand that traffic is unbearable, and, the more we can provide these services closer, we're actually reducing some of the traffic on our roadways and giving people some more of their time back.
Permitting, beach permits, trustee permits, everything is available. Whether you want to do it temporarily because it's the season, at least people can go there
Yeah.
instead of having to
All right.
truck all the way this way.
And you could have a satellite office there a couple of days a week, and it's handicap parking permits and things along those
Sure.
lines, so people don't need to travel.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons. Tax receiver time, I mean, you name
Particularly
it,
who
you know. when
clerks
you
that
have
live in the West Hampton area.
Well, I have one in Hampton Bays. We do 2 days a week, yeah.
That works.
And it works.
You move
It's pretty
around.
successful, yeah.
So
All right,
I
thank
want
you.
to thank the board for that. And again, it's going to entail some work because we will need more staffing and stuff, but I think by the time
Right,
we do
so-
it, we'll be
Obviously, the board will have to make a decision about closing hearings and things like that, but I will say, if we are going to do it, it's helpful right now to me to know, because I'm working on the budget for next year, and if I have to budget for some of the construction or some of the operational costs, a delay could make it very complicated.
Yeah, so I think it's a wise move. And again, staffing might only hit in 2022. You don't know how long it's going to take to build it out and fix what you have to fix, so.
Okay, thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Diana.
All right, who's next? Liz, do you want to go next?
Come on, Liz, come on down.
Sneak out there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Liz.
Part two. I pretty much have the same things to say as I did the last
Can
time.
we know who you are, but just for
Oh.
our recording purposes.
Liz Dwyer, Director of Senior Services. So as Councilman Bouvier said, senior population in that end of town is actually 31%.
Oh, it's gone up.
Yep, gone up a little bit. As Diana said, we have had a little sort of pilot lunch program at the West Hampton Free Library that was very successful, just 2 days a week. We had a little over 30 people try us out in that 8-month period. And as I said the last time as well, this area has always been included in the catchment area for the Flanders Senior Center, but traditionally, not many residents from south of the Sunrise Highway venture over there. It's just anecdotal information, but it really is the case. There's only been 15 people from the West Hampton area who used the Flanders Senior Center this year at all. So with a population of 30% of seniors and only 15 using the center in Flanders, I think there's a pretty big untapped population of seniors who could benefit from a senior center. You asked why senior centers are important. There are 3 main reasons why they exist. The first one is to promote nutrition and to eliminate food insecurity. The second one is for socialization. And the third one is to try to hold back on chronic medical problems that can be helped by good nutrition. So that's, and then in order to accomplish that, we provide activities to draw people in. We have physical activities like the chair yoga and the exercise. We have a book discussion group in Hampton Bays that could easily take place in West Hampton as well. There are, speakers for intellectual stimulation. So there are a lot of different activities that we try to provide around the main meal to bring the people into the senior center.
I said this last time, John wasn't here, but, when the pandemic struck, one of the first things that happened was the closing of the senior centers because seniors was the most vulnerable population.
Yeah.
And we worried without the senior centers about them, getting the meals. A lot of seniors already got meals that weren't mobile, that couldn't get.
Right, the traditional Meals on Wheels.
But I publicly acknowledged you last time. I want to do it again, Liz. What you retooled, you reprogrammed your entire operation so that you could continue to feed all those seniors who were coming to all the various senior centers, and by delivering hundreds and hundreds. You already we're doing a significant amount of meals, but you've added hundreds and hundreds of meals to your schedule 5 days a week, right?
Yes.
That's really remarkable.
I have a great staff.
And, you really, you deserve the accolades, because it's really extraordinary that you were able to do that almost like immediately, completely reinvent your program and make sure that those seniors got the nutritious meals that they were so dependent on. So I want to publicly thank you again.
As I said, I have great staff who, they're very dedicated, and we all love the seniors, so it wasn't something that was hard to do. But something that I want to bring up is now that we've been doing that for the last 5 months, and, it's become routine, and, we're all back working 100%, so there's a little bit more time. We've really tried to pivot program-wise, as Diana mentioned, and so our recreation program planner, who used to plan our trips, which we don't do anymore, and our things like our senior picnic and, all of the traditional events, she's really gotten, she's really pivoted, and we're providing a lot of programs online. We opened up our own YouTube channel. We've been videotaping our exercise and yoga instructors. We surveyed the seniors, got all their email addresses. Heather's putting out a weekly newsletter with links on a daily basis, Throwback Thursdays and, Travel Tuesdays and that kind of thing. And we've probably got like 60 to 70 seniors who are taking advantage of that. And it's, it's something, but there is a big population of seniors, especially the older ones, who are not tech savvy, and also can't afford the equipment and the internet. So that's why we've taken our show on the road. And today was the first day we went and visited 12 seniors from the Flanders Senior Center. And I was very pleased to see that they seemed to be thriving. Only a couple of them looked, like they were, a little isolated. But so we have plans to do it in the Bridgehampton catchment area and in the Hampton Bays catchment area. And I'm going to
That's
put
great.
Councilwoman Lofsted on the spot and say, if you would join us on the bus when we're doing the Hampton Bays, we'd love to have you.
Let me know.
Absolutely.
Maybe Councilman Martell as well.
Sure, absolutely. The more the merrier.
I just have a quick question. So about the seniors who may not be either tech savvy or can't afford a laptop or something, is there anything that we can do to get them connected?
Well, I don't know about connected because I'm not even sure they have the interest. But what we have been doing is making phone calls. And another aspect is we're putting some of our stuff on CTV because everybody that's got cable has Channel 22.
Okay.
So we're going to have some of that stuff on.
Good.
We're on it right now.
Well,
Well, you-
as quickly as possible, absolutely.
In that
No, I say
regard.
we're on it right.
Oh,
at
there you
this
go,
moment.
yes, exactly.
In that regard, I got, and it's funny you say that, because a couple days ago, I got a call from, do you recall Sherry, who had, about the phone line for
Yes.
seniors, and she thought, well, this is a really good time
Yep.
to be able to have seniors be able to communicate without, the fear of social distancing
Yep.
and all those other issues. So I'm going to bring it up because I told her I would speak to you about that and, see if that was, it sounds like something you're already doing, which is great, so.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a lot of success with that, and it's really helping people stay connected, and not feeling isolated
Yeah.
in that respect, so that's great. It's good news.
I think the CTV thing is great. And do you give everybody a call and say, hey, we're going to be doing yoga at 10 o'clock on channel?
We will. We just had the Charles Styler, I think it was, just came in and videotaped the yoga last Friday. So we don't know exactly when it's going to be on. When we do know, we will let them know.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's not as good as being in person, but
But most people can turn on the TV. I know I have problems myself with tech stuff. I'd rather just click on the TV for sure.
right.
All right, anything else for Liz? All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
With Nancy, I think.
Why not, why not?
Why not, why not? Oh, no, that's never gonna lose that one.
That's not the first time.
It's the first time
I
for
always
me.
thought, if you run for office, that's your bumper sticker.
Good reason not to run for office, perhaps.
Nancy Lynott.
Hi, good evening. I'm Nancy Lynott. I'm the director of the Youth Bureau for Southampton Town. And as I said the last time, we have been talking for probably 15, 16, 17 years about developing something in West Hampton, to have a facility where we can, expand our programming.
Our clerk's been deeply.
And
Our children were on the committee.
Yeah, our kids were in school at the time we
My daughter's
started
29
talking
years old
about
now,
it.
so.
So this is definitely the culmination of a long conversation, and I know that there's a big interest in the community in having a community center space, not just youth services, but a community center space. So it's very exciting from that perspective. As far as youth services, I think we offer a lot of social emotional support and mental health support through a variety of different kinds of programming. Proximity and accessibility are very important to the services that we offer, which makes a location in a community like West Hampton really important, because now we work a lot harder to reach some of these communities where we don't have facilities to go to. We already have a working relationship with West Hampton Beach Schools, Hugs, that does a lot of programming in the West Hampton area, and the West Hampton Library. So those networks are in place for us to build on, and I think with a facility, we could offer some really unique and interesting programs. I think our experience with the pandemic has been the need to connect with kids, with the mental health support for kids and families has been really an important emphasis. And again, being able to have a place that kids can come to and families can come to, that they can get to seek that service, is always an asset. I think we have discovered this summer, since we have cautiously started doing programming for kids in small groups, that kids and families are crying out for that service. They're really glad to get out from behind a computer screen. We're the exact opposite of the seniors. They want to get out from behind the computer screen. They want to interact with other people. One parent said to me, "I don't care who they're with. They just need to be with somebody besides me." So we're finding that that's both at our Flanders facility and our North Sea facility, we are finding that feedback from the community. So that, again, the idea of being able to offer services that people can access more easily rather than having to drive 25 minutes or half an hour or sometimes even 40 minutes is definitely important. So
Nancy, the youth services portion of the building, wherever that will be, that's pretty much an open-air design, right? So you can have ping pong,
Yes.
pool tables, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, the idea is everything in it is flexible, with the exception of the pool table, which doesn't fold up at all. But everything's flexible, so the space can be reconfigured to accommodate yoga class and karate class, but we can also set it up with, fill it full of tables and do chess and homework help.
Yeah, the
and
beauty of
those
this
kinds of
building,
programs.
because it was a car dealership, the way they designed it is they have these, the I-beams running across it. There's no internal support structures so that they could bring the cars in and out. So it's actually perfect for that kind of thing, because you don't have to work around all the columns.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's a total open concept.
And
design.
it's a perfect setting to set up a setting like we have in Flanders, where we're in a building with senior services, and the building is used all day. The seniors are using the youth area in the mornings. They play pool. They love pool. So they have access to the facility in the morning, and then in the afternoons, not only do we use that, but in the afternoons and the early evening, we can also use the congregate space for larger meetings and programs. So it works out as a perfect shared space.
Is this more square footage or less, or about the same as a Crowan Center?
This is about the same as
Okay.
the total.
Perfect.
The first floor.
The first floor, exactly.
Yeah, the main floor.
Right.
Any other questions for Nancy?
No, just, I love the idea of the additional programs. We have autistic programming needs and a lot of those programs that are out there. So, the building, the size, I think is more than sufficient for us to build into it as we go, as we go a little bit in that respect. So I'm excited
Definitely.
by this. I know that, I've gotten a lot of letters in support of this, a lot of emails in support of this, and I know Sunday and I had sat down when I first got into office with a small group of people. You guys were there, and we looked at one building, and it's 5,000 square feet. And I go, how do we cram all this into that? And we just, it wasn't going to work, and that was going to cost more than what we're dealing with now. So I'm very excited about this. I'm excited that you're excited. And I'm excited that you're excited, and you too as well. So let's get busy and fulfill
But
this.
what you mentioned too is also a good point. We'd be wanting to do programs for special needs populations. We'd want to be doing workforce training and development programming. Those are all things that are really needed in all communities in Southampton, so.
Maybe you might not be the one to ask this question to, are we going to do adult daycare there?
No, probably not.
No, probably not. Okay.
That
But we are
requires-
going to have a warming,
More
we're going to have a warming kitchen though, right? We're not going to do the main food prep, at least at this juncture. We'll do that at Hampton Bays, and then we'll ship it out. Okay.
But the infrastructure is there for that if we ever need to. So that's an important distinction, that this building has all of those things there already. So the warming kitchen is what you're looking for, but that doesn't preclude us from, at some point in the
Right.
future, being able to expand on that.
All right, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there anyone else? No, I'm seeing none. So, John, this is, you've been the prime sponsor here, and thank you. I know this is something that you have focused on. This is something you've been committed to bringing into being in that area. Do you want to close? One of it has had actually 2 hearings already, and the other has had 1. I think it's been well publicized, though, in terms of the news media, that I think a lot of people are aware that the town board is looking to potentially acquire the building. There's no legal requirement that we keep the record open.
I'd like to leave the record open just for a period of time.
So do you
I'm
want
happy
to close the
uh,
hearing itself and just leave the written
and leave
record
the
open?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah? All right.
Reasonable.
I thought, at the discussion of the board.
All right, do you want to?
And you need to do them individually, too, like.
I'm sorry?
You need to do them
Oh, all right,
individually,
all
like you
right.
did.
Oh, we do? Okay.
So why don't we close the first one entirely, since this is the second hearing on it? And then on the second one, we'll close the,
2-week period or.
close, 2-week period? I guess so. That's, the next time it would
What?
be eligible for a vote is
The
2 weeks
next.
anyway, so.
The next town board meeting?
Yeah, it would be 2 weeks from, yeah.
Is
So it
September
wouldn't make
8th.
any difference.
Right.
Or we could leave it for a week, and then that gives you time to.
I mean, if you want to leave we can make the exact same motion on both of them.
All right, let's do that.
So John, do you want to make the motion on public hearing number 7 to close the spoken record and leave the written record open for 2 weeks?
I do.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Who wants a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Martell, seconding, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and the 8th public hearing, same motion?
Same motion.
And same second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that gets us through the public hearings. We'll go to public portion. Does anyone wishes to be heard in public portion?
Thank you.
Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close
I'd like
public,
to, Jay, if I could, I'd like to say something just for the public's edification.
in public portion?
In public portion, yeah.
Okay.
Right. I just want to, I implore people to fill out the census. And I know this sounds almost cliche, but we did a press release, the town council's office did a press release, Southampton Press did an article on this. I was looking up the numbers. Currently, Southampton Town has a response rate of 37.5%. East Hampton Town has a response rate of 30%, and Shelter Island is 28%. And the reason why this is important to us is our representation on the state level and the county level. This is a reapportionment year. They're going to redraw the districts. And if there are more people to the west, our district will be extended to the west. Currently, Brookhaven Town is at 69% response rate. And I don't mean to make this a competition thing, but I know people are moving out here to the East End, and we need our representation. Currently, our Assembly District goes from Montauk well into Mastic. Our Senate District, State Senate, it starts at Port Jeff and goes to Santa Mauritius and includes the East End. And then I think most important, Jay, you can speak to this, is our county district goes from Montauk into East Mauritius. We have 2 seats in the county from Shoreham Wading River to Santa Mauritius East out of 18 seats. So filling out the census is state aid for schools. We mentioned Meals on Wheels. And for the state in general, we're looking at cuts in that department, but we'll leave that alone. But for reapportionment purposes only for what we need here on Eastern Long Island, please fill out the census.
I have a question. So, we're not in a competition, but
Of course not.
any idea why 60+% in Brookhaven and 30-odd% around here? What are they doing different?
I don't know, except that this is one of the areas, the South Fork, where the Census Bureau has deployed people to go out and go door to door because we're underreporting.
I worry, though, that people aren't going to answer their doors because they don't want
I know.
anybody, you know?
But you can fill out the census really easily online.
I did.
Really,
I did.
Yeah, we
Right.
did too, so.
I
part
did
of-
too.
I just want to say, I did see a census person in a neighborhood that I happened to be in, but it was a neighborhood, honestly, that was, the majority of them were second homeowners. So they filled out a census where they considered to be their first home and not their second home.
Second homeowners
Because
need
they-
to fill out the census as well.
They should.
Yes.
But then say,
Right.
I'm counted here at this other place, not here. And that's part of the problem, I think, that once they fill out the one, they don't think
They
they
don't
need
think
to
that they-
do the
right.
other. And we have quite a few people here that may be occupying their second homes right now, but still
And-
consider their first residence.
Which is another issue. We know that our population has gone up. We're
Yes,
year-round, almost
absolutely.
59,000. We're way over 59,000, but,
And now a lot of our school districts
So-
are getting new
Thank you, yeah,
enrollments
'cause-
as
so that's our
well,
plea.
so-
And
No,
and
it's
I
a
think
great-
it's a
it's a-
good one.
And they
you know.
should be.
I
My
agree.
guess
Once
has
they're
been
enrolling
that we've
their
had
children
about
here
200,000
now,
people
should be
here for
switching
about
their
6 months.
6
census.
months at least, yeah.
With the resources to really manage a much smaller population, but.
My2020census.gov. You can do it on your phone.
All right,
do it
thank you.
right.
I did
We all
mine.
did it, I know.
All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Moving on. Thank
a-
you.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and so I just want to, you may have a list of 3 other resolutions to add to the agenda. 34650 authorizes hiring the firm of Redland Strategies Incorporated for review and guidance on Southampton town procedures. 34662 is warrant number 16, and 34665 adopts temporary remote work policy. I'd like to add those 3 to our agenda.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, so we needed 4, we had 5, so they'll be part of our agenda. All right, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible, though I don't get to read the first one. I think that's you, John. So to the
Okay,
agenda.
Yeah, let me get my, sorry about that.
I think we're going to table this one, but
Okay, Town Board Resolution 220-665 is co-sponsored with Councilman Martell and Councilman Schiavone to authorize the purchase from Dalal Concrete Corporation for new sidewalks at Militus Green property using Suffolk County contract. And I know we've had some discussion as to the brick type and costs and things like that, so I'm a little unsure as to what the sponsors are interested in doing.
I would sort of like, because there's been quite a bit of correspondence, Kristen Doulos, et cetera. If we, there's some initial cost and then there's the continuing cost, and it sounds like the brick lasts a lot longer, might be a little more expensive to put in, but certainly brick over concrete would create, I think, sort of the aesthetic that's appropriate for that park, but if we could wait and maybe we could have Kristen come to a work session, or.
I'd like to do that, to wait on it. I think we have a real opportunity here. with this green. It's a triangular green, and I think it could make a nice promenade from a parking lot area that we own, and we have a couple of cars there, to Ocean Road, where there is another park. So the Parks Department, to their credit, has been doing quite a bit of work in there. They've cut back some of the
Dead trees, yeah.
It was growing in on the park, and you could barely see it, but now it's a little bit more open, and I think with a red brick walkway there, it could be really, really quite nice. And we're putting in red brick in front of the buildings, the strip of stores on the sidewalk, so I'd like to research it a little bit.
Yeah, it'd be great to feel like it's always been there, the walkway, you know, like as you walk that little trail, to feel like it's not something we just, you know, modern thing. It's more, because we've spent so much, I hate to say it, on not Topping Rose, the Nathaniel Rogers House, trying to do it historically accurate, you know, down to the type of glass that's used and, you know, every piece of the balustrades. And yeah, I think we can go a little bit here and just make it feel like it's part of that. I don't know, it's just one man's opinion, but.
Well, that would actually work out, because I've asked Kristen Doulos and Christine Fenton to weigh in on another issue, you know, after the canceled work session, so we could table it to the town board meeting after the third work session in September.
And by the way, in front of those stores where Almonds, you know, where Almonds is and the liquor store, and there's a few stores in that location, they were gonna do stamped concrete there. And on further review, agreed to actually do bricks. Whereas it's sort of the same situation. So they had done a little strip of stamped concrete, and around the main monument, there's the stamped concrete, but, it's sort of a mishmash, because across the street at Pierre's, it's bricks, and just to try to be somewhat consistent, I think waiting a little bit and getting it right makes sense.
It's fine.
Rick,
I don't think there's any urgency on it.
Historically, this was a drilling field during the Revolutionary War, and it was for the entire South Fork.
Oh, not drilling for oil, but
Drilling.
No.
practicing.
March and
Yeah.
pomp and circumstance.
I was like, really?
It was much bigger then.
Rick, you okay with that?
Yeah, we're good.
And Julie, you all right with waiting a little bit? All right, so John, you want to make a motion to table?
Yes.
Who wants the second?
Till,
Second meeting
next
is the
meeting.
22nd.
22nd? All right, let's do that.
To the 22nd?
Yeah, because we have two canceled work sessions, and what you're suggesting is you want to have a
We
work
won't
session.
get it in before the 8th.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's up to
I
you.
think we
You
could
canceled.
Probably
the
do it
session.
offline, do it. In other
Oh,
words,
no, I thought you'd made a suggestion, you wanted a work session, so.
he did.
I did.
Oh, you did?
Right.
Okay, so now you guys got me all totally confused.
Well, so right now, we don't have a competing bill, like, we don't have an amended bill.
It's merely a cost issue in aesthetics.
Right, exactly.
So, we don't have to have it discussed at a work session, we can all have our own conversations
Okay.
with
So,
Kristen. What-
next.
So you're just going to vote on it then?
Yeah.
Well, it might be a completely different bill by the time we vote on it, so.
Okay.
I don't know what we're
You
voting
just
on.
tell me what
September 8th.
You know,
Let's do that.
maybe by then, we'll be making an amendment to this, and we'll be passing the amended resolution.
Need a
I
second.
think Kristen was gonna
Who
look
was
at.
the
other
second?
Rick was
funding.
second.
I think Rick was second.
Rick, you're,
Second? Okay.
all right, Rick is seconding, all in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right,
Good. I don't think I have to read the next one, right?
685. All right, 685 of 2020, authorized acquisition of lands of Bauer and Forest Park LLC, Sagaponic, and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. This is those 4 lots. They're very close to the water. They're in agricultural use. They're in the Sagaponic area, north of the highway. We're buying the full fee, and then we'll put farmers, a farmer or several farmers onto this property, and we can restrict, sort of, you know, we can limit the use of pesticides or fertilizers, and I do actually like the idea of having a farm stand, not on this property, but on Montauk Highway at that other piece we bought, full fee acquisition for farming, but it's not being currently farmed. So, you know, I'm very supportive of this. I think this is a great way for us to preserve the environment and agriculture at the same time, and keep this open space, but have it farmed in a way that is really protective of the pond that is very close to this.
It's an important area, a lot of agriculture there, it maintains open space, it's also very close to Poxy Bog Pond,
This is very close, yeah.
so, you know, good topsoil there, though.
All right,
Well, I was going to suggest, Councilman Shivani, second that, because I was...
do we have a second already? I thought we did.
John's the second.
John, you seconded.
I was going to
Here.
second this one, because this was something important to the area on liaison to, but it's fine.
That's fine.
Do you care? You want to change?
No, I don't care.
Change it?
It's fine. Just trying
But I am
to,
Just trying to keep
trying to
track.
get through the night.
Thank you.
However, if Councilman Scavone wants to co-sponsor, they would be
Can we
welcome.
vote?
I will co-sponsor it. Thank
All
you,
right.
Supervisor,
Oh, me.
same second.
So, okay, there was a motion, a second by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the clerk will note that it's co-sponsored now by.
I did, it's done already,
All right, thank you.
on it.
All right, 686 of 2020, authorized acquisition and development rights of lands of Peconic Land Trust as contract vendee Eastport and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property.
I would like to co-sponsor that with you,
Okay, and I'll
Supervisor.
take a
I'll
second.
take that
John,
second.
you want a second?
And take my second.
And, you know, this is in an area where we've been buying development rights. This one, I don't believe is an enhanced easement. Some of the others are. We heard from the Peconic Land Trust.
Yeah.
And it certainly seems to make a lot of sense to help protect that large block in the Eastport area keep it as farmland.
And it's of great interest to many of the residents that live on that road.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing.
Significant.
It's 172,000, and we'll be, purchasing the development rights in that area. All right, so a motion and a second by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right. 687 of 2020, authorized acquisition of lands of Tusa in North Sea, amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property.
Second?
This is seconded by Councilman Lofsted. This is roughly 5 acres on Edgewoods Road. This is the one that has a little section where the power lines went through, but a large area of woodland contiguous to an enormous block of open space that the town maintains in that area. So this is in the Great Hill target area. Seconded by Councilman Lofsted. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 688 of 2020, authorized acquisition of lands of Weiss in East Quogue, amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. Do I have a
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofsted. This is 1.8 acres. This is on Dune Road in East Quogue. Vacant parcel. This is this also sort of finishes up or is part of a larger area. We own quite a bit in that area. This was that narrow strip, if you remember. Part of it's certainly wet, and sort of helps complete that larger block. It's $130,000. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-698, authorized change order for Baycrest Avenue Access Project.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Back to me, 699 of 2020, authorized supervisor to sign any and all documents for a governor's traffic safety grant.
Second.
$12,650. Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 700 of 2020, authorize the supervisor to execute a 2020 renewal of the Bentley Systems Incorporated for their Procureware Cloud hosted software solution to manage the town's operation for bidding and contracts.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 701 of 2020 authorizes the supervisor to execute a contract with Alexander's Automated Meter Reading Solutions as sole source provider for the selling Versa probes, wires, repairs, etc. for the meter reading guns for the Hampton Bays Water District.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 702 of 2020 authorizes the supervisor to execute an agreement with the Long Island Telecommunications and Electronic Services, Inc. for portable radios at the Hampton Bays Water District.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 703 of 2020, authorize the supervisor to execute any and all documents for a 5-year contract with Priority Dispatch for the town's police department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 704 of 2020 authorizes the supervisor to sign a donation agreement with Boy Scout Troop 483 for cross-country trails, add markers, and install a trailhead sign and key at Red Creek Park.
Excellent.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 705.
Thank you, Maximus.
705 of 2020, authorize supervisor to sign consultant agreement with Susan Western to assist the Southampton Town Police Department to implement the Lexipol software system.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 706 of 2020, recall and amend Resolution 687 of 2018, 255 of 2019, 381 of 2020, with Gentile Pismini and Brengel LLP.
Second.
I think it's a name change.
Yeah, Gentile's,
Understandable. All right. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, is that right?
that's correct.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 707 of 2020, recall and rescind resolutions 272 and 386 of 2020.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-708 to recall and rescind Town Board Resolution 2020-667.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-709 is a 2020 second notice to bidders for the STOP program, household hazardous waste removal.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 710 of 2020 notice to bidders for Southampton Animal Shelter rooftop access ladder.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-711, 2020 notice to bidders for closed top shelves contained ejector trailer with hydraulic roof opening.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-712, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, is a 2020 notice to bidders for demolition at 20 Larbert Road in Hampton Bays.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 713 of 2020 amends 2020 adopted budget for CPF land purchases.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-714, amend 2020 adopted budget for Flanders Farm Fresh Food Market Initiative.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 715 of 2020 amends 2020 adopted budget for Hampton Bays Water District.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 716,
This is the amendment for the,
amends the 2020 through 2024 capital budget for bulkhead repairs at Baycrest Avenue.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. John, what were you saying about it?
this was just the amendment on the previous,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, 717 of 2020, authorized closure of capital projects.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 718 of 2020, deposit monies into escrow account for professional services in connection with the change of zone petition application concern of Southampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 719 of 2020, resolution of adoption, amending Town Code Chapter 123, building construction to authorize the extension of building permits and waive any applicable extension fees due to COVID-19. This is eligible for a vote. That we held a hearing earlier today. Kathleen Murray introduced it. So we did close it, and it is eligible, so I'm making a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh, Chair.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Okay, just, who's seconding?
Julie.
Councilwoman Lofstad is seconding. Any discussion on this?
No.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I have so much work on my plate. This is, and I have to sign a number of these every week. This is the right thing, I think, to do, so.
Yeah, it's very much right.
So appreciate that. All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. After the pandemic, we can repeal this section. I don't, so if you wish.
Yeah, I think it's kind of critical to do that.
All right, 720 of 2020, this authorized CPF tax refund pursuant to first-time homebuyers exemption for Suli Disa.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 721 of 2020, recalls and amends resolution 587 of 2020.
Second.
Changes the amount slightly. All right, I'm sorry, second was John?
Yes.
Councilman Bouvier seconded, all in
I
favor?
think it was.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 722 of 2020, the 2020 standard workday and reporting resolution for appointed officials.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Well, how is it that you have more hours than me, John?
That's a good question.
Well, you have,
You ought to work more.
All I do is work. Every day, every night, and all through the weekend.
Yeah, and I just sit home and
you
do
know,
this all the time.
However many hours there are in a week is pretty much what my hours.
These are actually original numbers from 4 years ago. I don't know how these got.
It looks like you're the hardest working councilman.
Well, I mean, if you want to.
Be very well
If you actually want to.
This is from January 1st of 20 to December of 20.
Brings me to gentlemen.
How did, and
I thought
how
I
is-
did more, but what am I going to do?
Oh, those are your terms, right? So for the term, so that's
Yeah,
what you have
right.
till
This
23.
This was, these numbers, at least for us, were the numbers that were originally in place when we first. This was just my first day.
Well, it hereby
You're
establishes.
working every day.
The standard work days.
29 days out of the month. We're in high demand.
No, it's just I got to do everything over.
A standard, and is that supposed to be like the hours? in-
That's days of the month.
Days of the month.
Yes.
Oh,
So
so-
that's 4 full weeks of work.
So you
work 5 days a
So,
week.
yeah, so you work 28 days, 28.92, does that include the month of February? I'm sorry. Which only has-
I don't know, I didn't see you.
I want to revisit the calendar.
Well, it's nice to know something says I get my weekends off.
Yeah.
But I haven't taken advantage of that.
I haven't taken a vacation.
Okay,
I
so.
want to change this.
Did we vote on it?
We did.
All right, we approved it, okay. 723 of 2020. accepts retirement of Carl Cornelio, maintenance mechanic 2 in highway. Who's our highway liaison? Rick, you want a second?
Yep, second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell.
Actually, this number does not make sense. So let's revisit that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved, and congratulations to Carl, and thank you for your service to the town of Southampton.
John, you were the second? Who was the
Yes.
second?
Rick was the
Oh,
second.
I'm sorry,
Rick
Rick.
was the second.
Okay.
And I'm just on behalf of the town thanking Mr. Cornelio for his service to the town. 724 of 2020 appoints Gabrielle Sirocco
Yes.
to confidential secretary position in the town clerk's office.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Thank
approved.
you.
All right, 725 of 2020 appoints Joseph DePinto to building permits examiner position in building department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Congratulations, Joseph. And to Gabrielle. 726 of 2020 rescinds Town Board Resolution 683 of 2020.
Second.
Forgotten footnote.
This is for the missing footnote. Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 727 of 2020 rescinds Town Board Resolution 684 of 2020. Also an omitted footnote. Do I have a second?
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, 728 of 2020, co-sponsored by all of you, adopts a town policy regarding COVID-19 related travel restrictions.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. That brings us to page 43.
Town Board Resolution 2020-729.
You wanna read that?
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
It's yours.
Go ahead if you want.
No, go ahead.
All right, 729, adopts a policy regarding New York State Employee Benefits Quarantine Act leave and application procedures for emergency responders.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, 730 of 2020, authorized acquisition of lands of Cotasuco LLC, Noyak, and amends the CPF management stewardship plan to include that property. I'll make a motion to table,
Second.
because we left the record open for 2 weeks. Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 731 of 2020, change the target area of parcel and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan. I'll make a motion to table that as well.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2020-732, road review application for Michael Saravolo, Suffolk County Tax Map 0900-259.00-02.00-010.000, Situate in Hampton Bays is accepted.
Second. Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
End of the regular agenda.
All right, to the walk-ons. 34650 authorizes the hiring of the firm of Redland Strategies Incorporated to review for review and guidance on Southampton town procedures. They'll be looking at our special event procedures. This was something that Town Attorney Jim Burke had recommended. Do we bring in somebody from the outside to take a objective look at some of our procedures?
Good idea, I second that.
Yeah.
Will we have a work session on that? or-
We can.
Oh, we'll see what they come up with.
Yeah, we were actually, the principal was going to make himself available at your next available work session. He
Okay.
felt about being available this week, but obviously we won't be doing that. But we can certainly, and we can also, if you want to meet more on a maybe a two basis, we can, I can work on that also.
Okay, that might be more.
Okay. All right, so there was a motion and a second, I think, by Councilman Bouvier, was it?
Yes.
Correct.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, approved. 64662 is the warrant number 16, capital 16, CPF 16, payroll liability. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. And 34665 is adopting a temporary remote work policy. This is something that we really need to put in place with schools reopening. We don't currently have it. Some towns do, a lot of towns do not. But this will allow people to work up to 50% of the time from home if they meet certain standards. If their work can be done from home, assuming that, and there's a procedure for appeal if somebody feels that they have extenuating circumstances. There's a committee that can review those things. This would apply both to CSEA and to town admin employees.
I'll second that.
And Sandra, I think, did a tremendous
It's
job
really
here.
well done. I
And She
agree.
spent a lot of time on this. I did have a conversation with her and Laura Smith from CSEA today. There were some minor tweaks that were made to this that allows the union rep to be notified during that appeal process or that review process if it's a CSEA member. And also sort of a due process provision. If somebody does not like the decision, they could appeal directly to the town board as well. So, all right, those changes were made. Other than that, it's what we said initially. So, all right, there was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, and, with people going back to school, there's going to be a real need for this, so. All right, particularly with those A-B schedules and things like that. Kids are home some of the days, not other days. So, in terms of other business, I think I'll save it tonight to let us go home unless you guys have more, but I did get an update from Ryan. Ryan had a conflict, couldn't be here tonight. He did prepare sort of an update, where did I put it, on some of the current COVID things. Yeah, here it is, COVID update. Some of the changes. I don't see anything that we can't, discuss at, the next time. Maybe just a couple highlights that, you are aware that gyms are now open, 33%, according to certain plans. There is some limitations now on music at establishments. It has to be secondary. This is sort of SLA guidance, so you can't, let's say at a restaurant, you can have musicians play to the diners, but the food has to be the main thing, not the music. The numbers, he says, are pretty good, 0.4% positive rate for tests given countywide. We are now checking the temperatures for town hall visitors as well as the acetasin. That's new. So we are scanning people's temperatures before they enter the building. And he does mention that parks have had some equipment at Bel Air Cove Motel today to work with the TLC, the town litter crew, over the next day or two in cleaning up that site. And, that's pretty much it. But, Ryan will, at the next work session, so they can continue to update us. Any other business? All right, everybody be safe, and I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting, close our meeting. I always forget what the right term is. Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Adjourn is, I think, the
Adjourn
right.
and adopt.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting. Seconded by Councilman Lofsted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. We stand adjourned.